Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace. Thanks for joining me. Happy Saturday. Hopefully you guys are doing well. This is going to be our live stream. We're going to be doing astrology readings on the channel this evening. Do me a favor and make sure you give me a thumbs up. And if you want to share this with other people who might benefit from getting a reading, please do. We'll give it a couple minutes to let people kind of get in. I know that we have a lot of new people that are visiting on the channel. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Drop us a hello. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Those of you guys who are new, I basically practice Western astrology and I work with tarot as well. We alternate every Saturday back and forth between doing discounted tarot or astrology readings. This week it's going to be astrology. So in order for me to do an astrology reading, I need to have some information. So I need to know your city, your exact time, including AM, PM, and your date and year of birth. By having that information, I can cast the chart and take a look at your transits. So we are going to be doing these live. We'll pull the chart up on the screen so you can get an idea of what I'm looking at, and it's a great demonstration, giving you some insight into what it's like getting a reading with me. If you scan the QR code right down here, it is going to take you to my PayPal. So the way that you want to do this is you want to scan, go to the PayPal. You can make your $40 donation for a question if you have a question about something specific in your chart, natal aspect or transits, or if you have a topic you want me to touch on, please keep the questions to one question only. That way we can kind of get through to everybody. And please, in the memo, put your information. So put your question, put your birthday, time, all of that stuff. It helps the process. That way we don't have to keep going back and forth trying to get information in the chat, because lots of people will comment in the chat. So it needs to be put in the memo, please, when you make the donation. And we're only going to be doing readings for donations only. So this is not free readings, unfortunately. But if you guys would like to donate and get a reading, you're welcome to do that. We have, first of all, yes, we hit 10,000 subscribers. I see your guys' comments. Thank you so much. Really big accomplishment for the channel. We hit that over this last week. Super awesome. I'm really excited to see what we've got in store for this next year. Lots of love and everything goes into the channel. So thank you guys for your support and all your birthday wishes. There was a lot of them. So we're going to start with level 3 people first. So if you guys aren't aware, I have memberships on my channel. Level 3, basically, you're going to get in for just shy of $50 a month. You're guaranteed to get one reading once a month from any of my Saturdays. So you can choose between tarot or astrology. You're supporting the channel, and you are also going to get shout outs from me. So if you guys like my content, do consider joining my memberships. I've got 3 different levels. And just to kind of go through my shout out list, wow, the list is just growing day by day. So we've got Maui, Catherine Murray, Claudia, Tiara, Deanna, Paula, Stephanie, Angela, Flowing Through the Pines, Willow, Emma, Susan H., Miss Fogel, Jackie, Harazed, Nancy Celerito, Jessica Martinez, and Susan Wexler. You guys are awesome. Some of you guys have been supporting me and you've been members literally for going on a year and a half, almost 2 years since we started doing these. So thank you guys so much for making that possible, for supporting Beyond the Veil. It's because of these memberships and donations that I'm able to create as much content that I'm creating out. And hopefully I'll have new levels that I'll be able to be putting out there in the future to give you guys even more content. Those of you guys who are a level 3 though, if you want to cash in on your monthly reading, I know we've got Nancy, so she's going to do that. But anybody else who would like to get in for their reading for the month, you are welcome to do so. Kurt says, can we get a quick update on Elon getting back on Twitter? You know, it's so funny. I was talking to my husband about it because I was like, man, on the podcast that I do, the Midheaven podcast, I've been talking about that a lot with Mike because of the Mars retrograde. So actually Mars is going retrograde over Trump's Sun and Uranus in the 10th house. So he's obviously just announced he's running for president again in 2024, but now he's been reinstated on a social platform, Mars and Gemini. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I talked about it in my video for tomorrow. I don't want to get people too riled up because people are going to have some real extreme emotions about this, but you know, we'll see. Okie let's go ahead and get into these readings. Let me plug in Nancy's info and then we're going to go down the list. I've got Amy and Selena that are also kind of waiting. And if you guys make a donation for a reading, please just let me know, because sometimes my PayPal is kind of like weird and there's like a delay here. Shannon says, I sent my money and info, but I forgot to ask a question. Okay. Thank you, Madeline. We'll add you to the queue soon. The minimum donation is $40 for a reading, just a heads up. All right, so let me get Nancy's info in. Thank you, Nancy. Houston, Texas. All right, thanks for being a level 3 subscriber, Nancy. I appreciate it. And let's take a look. So she said, I have my eye on an older male from the gym. I like it. Yes, you can ask any question. Just be specific. We're only going to be answering question on one topic, or if you have questions about an aspect in your chart. All right, Nancy. So we've got you here, Pisces rising, and you have questions about a love reading. You got your eye on somebody at the gym. Really interesting stuff here. So you have got, obviously, so funny, Venus is in your natal 6th house, which is like gyms and fitness centers and healing centers. And you have Saturn that's coming through your 12th house, and it's coming into an opposition with your Venus. And that tells me that this can be about, you know, having seen somebody, you know, and you're kind of keeping it a secret in terms of having interest in someone. I've also got Jupiter that's getting ready to go direct, really big energy for a Pisces rising chart. You'll see that right around the new moon. That's coming up here in Sag here pretty soon. But when Jupiter comes into an opposition with Mercury, it might be when you're like, okay, now I'm feeling inclined to like reach out and like talk to this person, because you might have more optimism, and you might kind of feel like a little bit more likely to just kind of want to connect with them. So Mercury rules relationships for you. You've got Mercury in Libra, and it's in your 7th house. And Jupiter is going to come into this opposition. There we go. Sorry, this chart's kind of slow. So the oppositions happen 3 times. So this is the 3rd time now. So it's going to come into opposition again right around December 20th. Do you need to wait that long? No, but oppositions are relational. So something about that coming into opposition with Mercury is like you're more so willing to reach out with someone. You've also got the sun that's going to come into a square with Jupiter. So I'm wondering how long you're going to kind of hang around until you're deciding to kind of connect. Saturn will come back into an opposition with your Venus as well. So like there's this feeling of like, I want to, but I don't know if I should say something. And when you have a really strong Mercury aspect, other than the Jupiter opposition, you'll see that there's an opportunity for you to kind of connect with someone. So the 3rd week of December is what it's looking like. Like you could do it sooner, but I feel like that's when you're going to kind of be like, yeah, today's the day. Obviously wait for some like positive transits also happening involving Mercury. Something that you're going to see during the Mercury retrograde that's going to be starting up at the end of December is right when Mercury turns retrograde, it's going to come into conjunction with Venus. So I'm wondering, like, do you just see that person at the gym? Can you go to the gym, you know, with a friend and then find a way to like casually like talk to that person? Is there like group classes that maybe that person would be involved in, which would give you the opportunity to kind of like mix and mingle during the Mercury retrograde and give you the opportunity to be able to kind of connect? I think that you'll be feeling better about relationships when Saturn comes out of an opposition with your Venus. And that's going to be taking place in the new year. So it's going to perfect the opposition to Venus right around the end of January. So you can kind of be feeling like love is at a distance until about that period. Then you're going to see that Saturn's going to come into an opposition with the moon. And that's going to be more about how you are emotionally connecting with someone. So I could see you being kind of like, do I say something? Do I not say something? Like, what do I do? Use the Mercury retrograde at the end of December And also Jupiter in opposition to Mercury to just find a way to kind of strike up some conversations. Relationships in general, though, with significant Mercury transits, you're going to see that they're going to open up. And something you have working in your favor is actually the fact that Pluto is coming into a trine with your Mercury. So as Pluto continues to move through Capricorn, it enters into Aquarius in the new year. Pluto's going to be still in your 11th house, Placidus, but it's trining Mercury. And for me, it makes me feel like there's going to be a sense of you wanting to socialize more and possibly opening yourself up to introducing friends to romantic partners, or possibly you start dating somebody and then you kind of get brought into their social circles. Really amazing to see Pluto in Aquarius in the spring trine Mercury, so it's going to open up your relationship goals, but it's also going to be trining Chiron, so it's also like making you feel heard and allowing you to kind of communicate and feeling like you're getting into a relationship where there's just more understanding and somebody that's going to be probably a little bit more receptive. Now, one other thing that I'm noticing, and you didn't ask about this, but I'm going to bring it up, Mars retrograde. All the Mars retrogrades are going back and forth, that energy right now in your 4th house. So staying at home and like not doing much is probably not what you want to do. So any opportunity or any excuse that you have to get out of the house and go do other things is ideal. Mars is also in a really strong opposition to your natal Neptune and your natal South Node. And it's also in a square to all these Pisces planets on your ascendant. So it can go one of two ways. It can materialize as like the Jupiter Neptune kicking in your 1st house being like, okay, I'm too afraid to go and talk to somebody, or, you know, I'd rather just keep to myself. I don't want anybody to see me, or I'm feeling kind of like, you know, antisocial. Or you can use the Jupiter Neptune energy to be visualizing, focusing, manifesting, praying, to help kind of neutralize or transmute that really heavy T-square between your 1st, 10th, and 4th house. The fact that Mars is going back and forth on your North Node, I think, is also really important. Once again, you didn't ask, but I'm just letting you know, because Mars rules your 2nd house of money and income, so there's a sense of you being like, you know, I'm wanting to fix stuff up in the house, or I'm thinking about moving, or I'm trying to save money so I can improve my living situation, or buy something, or, you know, start saving so you can feel like you can make home purchases. And Mars will come into opposition with Neptune. So there is like this feeling of like, I don't want to have to go out of the house, but I'm going to be leaving the house, you know? So yeah, get stuff done, get out there, go and do things, try not to be avoidant, try to socialize, stay connected with people, and realize that with that Jupiter Neptune energy, you can kind of vanish or get ghosty, or like not be seen, or get afraid to kind of approach people. And you can miss opportunities, I think, with that Mars on your North Node. I also like the fact that Mars is trining Saturn and Pluto at the same time. So you've got air trines, which is intellectual, in your 4th, 8th, and 12th house, but it's emotional. So it's like how you're talking about vulnerability and opening up and being, you know, connected to other people and like being intimate, like that stuff. So really interesting for the 1983 group, just in general, because your North Node is in Gemini, and because the Mars retrograde is kind of hitting your nodes. So it's trying to get you to be more active, more assertive, more emotional, and perhaps maybe that's also just giving you a little bit more motivation also for fitness and working out, right? So I definitely think going to the gym is a good way to use that energy. Closer to the end of December, anywhere after, like, I would say the 2nd week is probably a better time to kind of reach out. But it might also be a good time to find a way to strike up a conversation, either involving another person, or maybe you're going to go up to them and be like, hey, you know, like, what do you think of these like classes? Or like, you know, like, oh, I've seen you around here, like finding a way to kind of socialize and be friendly so you can feel it out and see if there's a thing. But yeah, for sure, for many Virgos in general, Jupiter going retrograde, you know, through the sign of Pisces is still really improving your relationships, because you'll hear that it's 7th house to your sun. You're getting that, but it's actually you're improving the relationship with yourself because it's in your 1st house. So there in turn, it's like your energy is bigger, it's brighter, you're more, you know, more so noticed, and you're going to find that you're just kind of catching people's attention. So I think he's staring probably because of those oppositions that you're having between your 1st and your 7th house. And it can kind of act like a magnet, and it can kind of bring somebody in, you know? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Nancy. You have to keep us updated, but I'm excited to see this kind of go down for you. I think that Venus in the 6th, amazing place to kind of meet people, meeting people in a doctor's office, in a gym, or anything like that. Let us know how it goes. Thank you guys. I'm just catching up with the chat here. I appreciate it. I'll take a look at who else we've got. We've got Selena next, and we're also going to be taking the super chats that we got from Madeline. Madeline? Am I saying it correctly? Followed by Melissa, Shannon, Carla, and Brianna. Thank you guys for your patience. Hey, Echoist, I'm good. I'm tired. The Mars-Neptune squares are not fun for me. I'm exhausted. Every single time it gets me too. I always mean to like put it on my calendar, and then I'm like, oh man, I feel like I got railroaded. But thanks for asking. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate the love. All right, let's go ahead and bop on over and let's look at Amy's question. He's been closer to my class group setting. He grabbed an ab wheel and Matt. He never does that. Ah, there you go. Somehow a social thing is going to bring you guys together. So if there's like classes or anything at the gym, that's what you want to do. Good luck. Okay, so we've got Amy H. I'm not going to say your guys' last names for your protection, because you never know who wants their information on the internet or not. Naturally Mother Earth. Okay. I'm Amy. I'd love to know how to prepare for this upcoming new moon. In a reading you gave me earlier this year, you talked about my resources and working harder for them. Yep. I have a full moon reading with you in December. Cheers. Thanks. Oh, thank you. I'm sure we will be talking more soon. All right, so let's take a look at what you got going on here. So you're asking about the new moon that's going to be in Sagittarius, how to work with that energy. So being an Aries rising, you're going to hear people say, oh, we got a new moon and it's in, your 9th house. And yes, whole sign wise it is. So that does put a real focus and emphasis on what are you learning? Where are you traveling? What stories do you have to share with other people? Do you need to take a course? Do you need to get a certification? Is it time to file some kind of legal documents or paperwork? Are you thinking about, possibly planning a trip that might be next year or something like that, right? So just food for thought. For this to be happening in your 9th house, it can be an indication that you're planting seeds to do these things over the next 6 months, okay? However, Placidus-wise, 1 degree of Sagittarius is actually in your 8th house. So the 8th house is more about transformation, intimacy, sex, joint resources. So if you have goals to learn better techniques for your joint resources, if your intentions are to start getting prepared for your taxes early, right, 8th house, the ruler is Jupiter, and you've got Jupiter that's hanging out in your 12th. So for me, looking at this chart, it mostly feels like you're setting intentions in regards to being more open spiritually, or being more open to change, or being more open to, figuring out ways to kind of emotionally kind of tune and tap in. It's also a new moon that's going to square Venus, which is the ruler of your 7th house. So it's trying to get you to come out and be out in the open in terms of how you're really feeling about love and relationships, or where there can be some unwillingness to kind of open up. Interesting that this is happening, and then next year we're going to see when this perfects and it comes into a full moon in Sagittarius around Gemini season. You're also going to have Saturn conjunct your Venus. So there is this theme that's like, okay, are you shying away from relationships? Do you have a crush on somebody and you're not talking about it? Do you have spiritual talents or gifts or healing abilities that you're just starting to kind of learn about and tap into? That's how you're going to use that energy. What also is kind of cool is that being that the new moon is going to be at 1 degree, it's going to trine your moon, right? Which is the ruler of both your 4th and your 5th house. So it's also tapping into inner child. It's tapping into creativity. It's tapping into the ability also to be thinking more about what you love and what you're passionate about. And it can really light a fire, because it's going to be a fire trine taking place out of sign to Jupiter, but still a pretty strong trine from the Sagittarius new moon to Jupiter in your 12th to your moon in the 5th house. So I kind of feel like, what's the deal? Is it time for you to be, you know, getting more involved in passion projects? Is it time for you to be getting in touch with your inner child, or, you know, your inner kind of shadow self? I mean, like, that term kind of gets used a lot in astrology with the 8th house. I'm not a fan of it, but it's true. There is some transformation when planets go through the 8th. So for you to have the sun and the moon and Venus and Mercury there, it's like also a really great time to detox, purge, clear, you know, get rid of stuff, or let go of old emotions, or where you're afraid of opening up or receiving. Because the 8th house can be a really great house. It can be where other people say, hey, you know, I will give you the loan, or I will help you pay down the debt, or, you know, you're safe here to talk about your problems. So use this to be able to kind of open up to that. That's my advice. I also feel like such interesting timing. Once again, more unsolicited advice based off your chart. Pluto's coming into an opposition with your moon. So if you have not already started feeling that, you're going to feel that pretty intensely come the new year. Pluto rules the 8th house, and Pluto can be about, you know, transformation and releasing and letting something go. So as Pluto goes into Aquarius, and or your 11th house, it's profound shifts revolving around your goals and your friendships and your networks. And it's going to oppose your moon. So it's going to be trying to get you out of your comfort zone, getting back out there, maybe making new friends, maybe dating, or maybe just having, you know, more expansion in your social life, kind of pulling you out of your comfort zone. So it's interesting that this moon is trining your natal moon, saying, hey, let's set intentions to get out of our comfort zone and be more open to change, and finally dealing with anything that you might be afraid of right before Pluto comes into an opposition with your moon. So I'd go learn about that. Pluto oppose your moon. You'll be in that for about a year, off and on. And also Saturn coming into conjunction with your Venus. And Venus in Pisces, amazing, beautiful. But I definitely think that in the 12th house, there can be like a sense of like falling in love with the idea of love, or people who are not available, and not having love like reciprocated and like giving a lot. So I definitely feel like this is about learning to be open and not feeling like you need to shy away from relationships of any kind, right? It can be social, so it doesn't have to necessarily be, you know, romantic, but Venus does rule your 7th house, right? And you've got a lot of karma relating to relationships. Pluto, the North Node, Uranus, all hanging out in your 7th, right? Here comes the South Node getting ready to come into conjunction with your natal Uranus. And so relationships are not purely romantic. They can be platonic, and you can learn to trust people and trust again and have really profound shifts in relationships through female friends. That can be that Saturn transit. Also getting in touch with some of your spiritual gifts and other things that you're really clearly talented on or talented with behind the scenes, right? Especially if you're into like art, because your Venus is at a 2. So I don't know if this is about making money in a spiritual sense, or making sacrifices and giving back to other people, or if it's about making art, but I could see that kind of being the case. Echoist, yep. All over the place. Yeah. I mean, this is if you guys haven't already seen my new moon video that I did in Sagittarius, like, it's not often that I'm like, this is great. It's good. It's really, really good. It's a well-welcomed energy for the next month. And even though we're going to see a lot of mutable squares, I'm really quite excited about Jupiter going direct. And we're really going to see the effects of Jupiter in the spring. So like March and April, especially when we see the conjunctions to the sun taking place next spring. So right now with Jupiter in Pisces, and even, you know, today and tomorrow, it's trining the sun. So we're just super emotional, right? And trines are good, but like trines between Jupiter can be too much drinking, too much crying, too much emotions, meltdowns, right? This is the finale of Scorpio season. So there's a lot of like having to finally detox and kind of clear something out of our system. Hopefully that's helpful for you. But I definitely feel like looking at this, it's an opportunity to get in touch with the wisdom and the lessons that kind of come with transformation and endings, and like where it can actually be a little bittersweet, but definitely necessary to get to the core of some emotional stuff for you. So yeah, we can have some meltdowns in the process. I'm sure many of you guys are like ready to be done with Scorpio season, huh? I Thank you very much. I had a very busy weekend. It was my 33rd birthday and it was also my first wedding anniversary, so I got spoiled rotten. I said I want 2 gifts. All right, so let's see, who do we have next? We have got Selena. And then I've got that super chat, don't worry. I've got you, Madeline. Thank you very much. It was 11-11. I'm everybody's twin flame. All right, let's get to Selena. Yeah, Scorpio season does feel like 1,000 years. Try having a bunch of natal placements there. All right, so let's pull up Selena's chart and see what... I know she was in here. Where is she? Maybe not, maybe not. I don't know where she is now. I'm not seeing her. All right, well, let's, oh, there she is. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so Selena says, just recently got dumped by someone I was engaged to. Super hard to accept it. I guess I'm curious about my love life. Will my ex try to come back or should I move on? Sounds like a horary or a synastry question, but that's okay. We can take a look. Thank you guys for your patience. I will update on who's next in just a second. All right, Selena, we've got you here, Aries rising, and your sun obviously is in Aquarius and your moon is in Scorpio. So you go through an ending of a relationship. I'm curious if you're watching this when it happened. I'm wondering if it was somewhere around the November 14th period. Venus came into conjunction with your natal Uranus. You also just had an eclipse that was on your moon. That was at the end of October. So the moon in the 7th house in Scorpio is about some kind of something emotionally coming out of the blue with a partner and, you know, somebody sharing, you know, their feelings. So I'm sorry, that's tough. I can see you got a lot of planets in your 7th house. So relationships is definitely like a reoccurring theme. It's like something that you learn through Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, the moon, all in your 7th house. Relationship endings can be connected to your 6th house lord, which is the sun. That's why I think that the eclipse you had at the end of October was foreshadowing that there was going to be some challenges in relationships. I feel, especially if you have a lot of planets in fixed signs, or if you got a lot of Scorpio, whether it's Venus or a moon, it's going to take time to be like, okay, I'm moving on. So I'm not going to immediately tell you whether or not you should wait for that person or not. I can tell that there's going to be a sense of you know, kind of waiting to see what happens. That eclipse that we had at the end of October will unfold further, and this is actually going to be when the South Node comes into conjunction with your moon. So that can mean that you finally kind of begin to heal and move on, and you're not attached to the idea of an old partner by about June of next year. I'm not saying it has to take that long, but it could take that long because it's still going to be activating until it hits about 2 degrees. In terms of like relationships coming back, I mean, you know, you just had a Mercury retrograde that was in your 7th house in Libra, and it was going in and out of Virgo. So I feel like the writing was kind of on the wall in September going into October, where there was some miscommunications and some issues in relationships. I especially feel that because it was also coming into squares with Venus in your 10th house. And obviously Venus in Capricorn, super traditional, right? Like there is a sense of like when we're committed, we're together, really fixated on relationship commitment and like really putting it out there because it's in your 10th. It's interesting that there wasn't more going on with your Venus, right? So because Venus rules your relationships, and I could see maybe when Mercury retrogrades very close to your Venus here, which it's going to, that there's an opportunity to kind of like talk. Let's see, let me give you the dates. And figure out whether or not, you know, this is actually really done. So Mercury is going to turn retrograde at the end of December. When it turns retrograde, it's going to conjunct Venus. So interesting that you're having a Venus return while Mercury's in the shadow. So your Venus return looks like it's going to be taking place like around Christmas. So I want you to watch what happens around Christmas time. I'm not saying that they will or will not come back. I feel like all those planets going through the 10th house coming into a square with your 7th is like you kind of adjusting and being like, okay, this is the holidays potentially without this person, and how you're really stepping up and doing more for yourself and not feeling like you have to be as reliant on relationships. I feel that sometime between maybe right around Christmas and maybe when Mercury comes into conjunction with your Venus, somebody from the past reaches back out. That's literally what it is kind of looking like. Sometime between Christmas and the 4th of January. That's the vibe that I'm getting. The other thing that's kind of going on in the background is that Saturn is coming back into conjunction with your Mercury, which is in the 12th house. So you might feel like, okay, I'm having a difficult time mentally, or, you know, communicating or not reaching out to somebody, or I'm feeling kind of isolated, I'm feeling kind of alone. Having Saturn on your Mars also wants you to be really focused on connecting to your tribe, your community, your friends, people on the internet, Aquarius, you know, connecting with people in chats or reaching out to your friends and being like, hey, I'm having a hard time. Saturn also is your chart ruler. So it's basically trying to get you to focus on maturity, strength, not just focusing on romantic relationships. I know it's difficult, but that Saturn conjunct Mars and a trine to your Pluto is friends that are going to lift you up, and they're going to be like, he's missing out. You know what? Let him go. We've got you. Like there's a lot of room for growth in your friendships right now, as you're going through this very difficult time. Intuitively, I also feel that Jupiter kind of hanging out and sitting on your ascendant is about this new fresh start that's happening for you as an Aries rising. More optimism, more positivity, more freedom, right? So part of the Jupiter transit, people don't realize, sometimes it's about literally being like, okay, I'm on my own again. And it's opening the door for like travel. It's opening the door also, I think, for you to be feeling like through travel or connecting with people in different places or having a little bit of space, especially because Jupiter is going to come into opposition with all your planets in the 7th. Part of me feels inclined to tell you it's not about waiting for that person to come back. It's about being like knowing that you're the complete package and that you're complete without another person, and that your life doesn't stop just because this relationship ended, and that you're going to be growing and learning through the process, and like Jupiter under your ascendant, go live your life. It may have a really interesting kind of adverse reaction as it starts coming into an opposition with Saturn and Jupiter. And you may feel that through living your life, people are coming back to you, especially in the new year. Probably more so in the spring, to be honest with you. Like when all these planets go through Aries and it sits on your ascendant, and you're going to be like, I'm looking better, I'm feeling better, I'm having kind of like a post-breakup glow up. Things are going in my way, and you're getting the attention of, you know, others. So it's going to all kind of ping pong off of your 7th house. Your best bet, though, is going to be when Mercury is going retrograde, so right around the holidays. And it's not like, oh, if he loves me, he'll call me for Christmas. It's not that. It's just the transits, okay? From one Venus in Capricorn to the other, you know, your love life, because it's a Saturn-based Venus, it's going to mature as you get older, right? So now that Saturn's off of your Venus, now that you've got Jupiter, you know, in the next 2 years, it's going to trine your Venus. You're also going to find that Uranus coming back up in degrees is going to trine your Venus. Like all this energy going into Taurus, especially you'll see it next spring, is really helping you build on your self-esteem, 2nd house, your money, your resources, what you own, your spending power. And it's also funneling into trines that you're going to be having with your Venus. So it's opening up relationships, more mature ones that are going to stick. And I would say eclipses that are in Libra next year could also be a time where somebody from the past can come back. But that's not going to be happening until closer to the fall, but you will see some of those eclipses taking place there, I think closer to October, if I remember correctly. But yeah, your best bet is going to be right around the new year. And, you know, you were born with Venus square Pluto. So when Venus is in a square to Pluto in the natal chart, there's lots of working through pain or trauma or jealousy or possessions and things like that when it comes to relationships. So I don't want to get too much into it without kind of spilling all your personal life, but I would question what came up in September and October during the Mercury retrograde that was prompting this ending of the relationship. And yes, it's a bummer being engaged to somebody and being with somebody, but like, you know, it beats the alternative of getting married and then finding out that they feel like that down the road and you've been married for a period of time and you're more financially enmeshed with them or you have a family or things like that. Like, look at the silver lining is my advice. With having Jupiter and Uranus trine your Venus, love life can get very active. So people can come up like out of the blue. When I remember when I had, Saturn was on my Venus, a little different, but Uranus was trining my Venus. Lots of changes for me, basically. It was just like out with the old, you know, in with the new. Like people would just suddenly leave. It just wasn't working. So I think in your case, it can present new clients, new job opportunities, but also new partners. And that Venus in the 10th house, it wants tradition. It wants somebody that's going to stay with them forever. It wants to be super committed. Like it wants to build its empire with a partner. So people who don't see that in you and they don't see the value, it's their loss, right? So watch over the next 2 years, especially in the spring, the glow up that you have with Jupiter on your ascendant when Jupiter squares your Venus. I think you're going to be doing a lot better off without this person, to be honest with you. And I think that you're going to catch the attention of other people and people who also might realize what they had, but it's too late. But if you're looking for a timeline, I'd give this until about maybe mid-January. And if you're not hearing anything during that retrograde, then, you know, that's just my 2 cents. Hopefully that's helpful. Sending you lots of good vibes. Just look at it this way. If this relationship is done, it's making room for somebody who is going to appreciate what you bring to the table. Get in touch with your friends. That's really important with this transit. Saturn on your Mars is telling you need to be proactive with your friends, not just going and getting involved if you've got a crisis. Be consistent with your friendships. They're going to help build you up. Sending you good vibes. Somebody's asking, what system do I use for my readings? Well, when I do my readings specifically for my horoscopes and things like that, I have to make it general and easier to understand, so it's always whole sign. But when you work with me, you're going to be seeing that I'm going to look at it Placidus, because the timing of Placidus, I think, is a little bit more accurate than whole sign. You'll hear people debate this till the cows come home. I use both methods. I've come around to whole sign a little bit, but I definitely feel like the accuracy comes from using Placidus. Okay. So let's take a look. Hey, ELB. Appreciate it. I will add you to the queue. Let's get on over to Madeline. Here we go. I'm going to plug your info in. Sorry, guys. It's going to, might slow things down a little bit because now I got to start plugging these in. All right. So you are April 11th, 1998, 12:23 a.m. And I need to know the city that you were born in, please. Those of you guys who are making donations, if you're wanting to get in before we call last call pretty soon, scan the QR code below. Make sure you put your time, date, and location and your question. That's important. I need that to be able to read your chart. Alberta. Cool, thank you. Let me just confirm something here. Make sure this is right. April 11th, 1998, 12:23. Okay, there we go. Pull this up. You're born in 1998, so let's see. No, you didn't have your nodal stuff. Okay, so not yet. Okay, let me scroll back down. Thanks for your patience. Cool. All right, so your question was, I feel confused about my next steps. I was offered to move to a new city with a colleague. It sounds like something I'd like to do, but I'm worried this might not be the best career move. Okay, cool. Sag rising. Well, you got a number of things going on here. First of all, you've already had your Jupiter return. So the idea of relocating has definitely kind of popped up probably a couple times. You've got Jupiter that's getting ready to fully move into your 4th house, which can be an indication of a new move. And Jupiter is going to expand your home. Now, maybe you're going to see this more when it's crossing your IC in the new year. Jupiter is your chart ruler as a Sag rising. So traveling, relocating, going places, all that stuff is like kind of Sag, Jupiter's territory. I have a feeling, though, that there's some truth to what you're saying, that it could potentially have some challenges or something in regards to your career. And the reason why I say that is because Jupiter is going to come into an opposition with your moon. And that can be an indication that it's just taking a little bit of time to kind of get the swing of making the changes or adapting to where you're living and also working. And it might be a little bit more expensive, or, you know, trying to make ends meet. Because that deals with resources. It's temporary, though. I mean, Jupiter's going to move very quickly, so that's not enough for me to say don't do it. If this were me, I would recommend waiting a little bit longer, doing enough research, making sure that you have secured the city and also a job before you make this move. You're going to see a lot. This is going to go a lot smoother sometime in the spring. So from about the end of March through, let's say, May, as Jupiter and the Sun and all these planets start coming into your 4th house, and then you're going to be having an eclipse. The eclipse that's taking place is going to be happening around the 3rd week in April, and it'll be right on top of your Mars. So that does seem to indicate like a move is going to go, I think, smoother there. It'll also make it feel like an adventure, and at least you'll be out of Jupiter in opposition to your moon. So it gives you time to be like, I'm going to do my research, I'm going to save some money, I'm going to make some changes in regards to where I'm working, how I'm working, maybe secure work. That's really important. You also have Pluto that's getting really close to your Neptune. So I think that it's also important to make sure that you like the neighborhood, you can travel and get around okay, that also, you know, you have the money and the resources that you need, because Neptune is in your 2nd house, Placidus. So it's wanting to make sure you secure the finances before you actually make the jump. At the same time, Saturn is going into Pisces. So for Sagittarius risings, it's definitely a time where you kind of get rooted, or you get grounded somewhere, or you find a new home. And you're also going to be having Saturn that's getting very close to your natal Venus. So I want to make sure that the money is right, that you feel secure, you feel stable, you have work. Just being like, I'm going to go and like, God bless Sag placements, Sag rising, or if you've got a really strong Jupiter, or if you've got, you know, all this fire in your chart. It definitely seems fun and exciting, but I think that it's important to really kind of plan it well, right? Yeah, you've been awarded a fund. And you said you also had some issues possibly with like the person who you may be working with, or you weren't so sure. That is partially because you have Mars going retrograde right now in your 7th house. So Mars is also the ruler of your 5th house, so it's about creative collaboration. And Mars is in a square to Neptune. So there's a sense of being like, can we really do what they're saying we could do? You know, are we going to communicate well in this project? Are we going to be able to kind of get the things done that we want to get done? There's something like that that's kind of going on that, you know, yeah, you're right in the middle of a Mars square Neptune. Like when you're going through that, it's definitely, especially being a Sag rising, it's not the best time to be moving, unfortunately, or be agreeing to moving. Trusting people with Mars retrograde in your 7th in a square with Jupiter and Neptune is you need to make sure that people can back up the things that they're telling you. You also need to make sure that there's contractual agreements and things that are signed. Because to me, it really feels like there's something going on here that they may go back on something that they agreed to, especially with home and stuff, you know, home situations. People who are late Scorpio risings are having this too. So it's late Scorpio risings and Sagittarius risings. Mars going retrograde in the 7th is a change up of partnerships, and the squares to Neptune is like whether or not you can trust moving in with them, whether or not they're going to be, you know, a reliable roommate, whether or not people who want to buy a house are going to, you know, kind of pull out. So you're not out of this energy until about March. So even if they're telling you the money's there, do you have it contractually? Do you know that it's going to be something that you can rely on? Or if you're saying that, you know, they're willing to kind of fund something, is it possible for you to do something temporary? That's the question I would ask. You know, can you do a trial run without actually leaving? Can you sublease your place and go and do a stint there and see if it works out? Something like that, you know? But yeah, I would be very careful with Mars retrograde in your 7th square, your natal Jupiter, because I feel like some people are just going to tell you what you want to hear, and they're gonna make it sound a lot better than it should. And it's a time where you're making adjustments and changes in relationships in general until you come out of that square. I personally would not move. I think you need to wait until at least the second half of April, and I think it's going to go a little bit smoother. But if it's something you have to do now, you're better off doing something temporary or something short term to give it like a trial run and see how it would work between the two of you. Also, that's definitely coming down to synastry, because you could be having lots of squares and things like that that's going on in your chart, but if you have really good synastry with somebody, it's like me looking at this, saying to a Sag rising, like, oh, you know, you got Mars retrograde in your 7th square Neptune, you're getting divorced and you're moving out of your house. That's bad astrology. Some people are having that experience as a Sag rising, but other people are going, I need a new partner, you know, like there's a need for me to find somebody, but who's the right person that I mesh with? And do I have to move to find that person, or do I have to live with somebody to work with them? Everything is negotiable with the squares. So you'll be out of the squares right around the mid-March period, but the challenges is when this happens, I'll show you, we're going to have Mercury and the Sun and Neptune all conjunct. So I've been trying to say this tactfully, but I'll say this in a less tactful way. Everybody thinks they know what's going to happen in the world. We think we have it figured out. What we're going to realize over the next 2 weeks is there's a plot twist because of the planets in Sag. And then we're going to see that in March, when Mercury and the Sun and Neptune come together, it'll square Mars again. And then we're going to realize, oh my God, we didn't have all the facts. All the more reason to see if you can, you know, go back and forth and work with each other digitally, maybe extend the timeline a little bit, do something temporary. Don't make any serious commitments until closer to April. Trust me on this. Otherwise, you're going to end up probably making some difficult you know, financial decisions. There's going to be some stuff that's going to come up where you're going to feel a little tight, and or also it's going to inhibit you from being able to have some career stuff up until then. Like, you don't want to put everything on back burner and do this, you know? Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Keep me updated. You can always swing back around. People always kind of come back and they let me know what happens, but that's my 2 cents on when that's going to get easier. Good luck. Brianna's asking, will you ever do a live astrology course? Yes, all of my courses are always live. I taught my first one earlier this year. Now it's recorded, but you can watch all of that. We're going to start Astro 201, where I start talking about return charts, making predictions with the progress chart, a little bit more about synastry and relationships. We're also going to be talking about learning about transits. So if you want to start learning how to do some of these techniques, I'm going to be starting my level 2 course that is going to be in January of 2023. We're actually releasing all that stuff over this next week, so you're going to be seeing that. I think we're probably going to drop it on Thursday. Probably. We're going to put all of my courses on sale. So if you want to learn astrology, beginner's astrology, it's over 18 hours of a course. You can get that. All my courses are going to be on sale, and Astro 201 you can sign up for to get ready for my live classes in January. It'll be the most affordable it's going to be all year. We're going to have a Black Friday, kind of Cyber Monday sale. So all my courses will be on sale, including tarot. Okay. And I'm hoping to do more. I want to do at least 3 levels so I can really train some people. All right, so let's go ahead and get into who we have next. We are going to probably call last call now-ish. So if you guys want to get in, I recommend getting in now. This will be a lot easier, and I won't have to stop as much if I just put everybody's chart in. So if you guys want to give me just a couple minutes, I'm going to put everybody in. So if you want to get in, I recommend doing it now. Let me load all these charts up. So I appreciate it. You guys get a snack, something to drink. I'm not going to be very entertaining for probably a couple minutes. All right, so I've got Melissa, Shannon, Carla, Brianna, Amanda, Angela, Erica, Regini, Michael, and Pamela. All right, so let's plug in Melissa. What's the best way to send you our charts? Or you just need the year, date, time, and location? I just need that info. People sometimes want to send their chart, but it can be difficult because I'm used to looking at my software. So I always appreciate that, but I would rather run the chart myself. That's just me. All right, 5/21/1970. You are very welcome. All right, who else do we have here? So we got Melissa, Shannon, Carla. $725.81. Yeah, those of you guys who are big astrology enthusiasts too, thank you for putting that out there. My new 2023 calendar is now live, so you can get that in digital or print version. It's pretty cool. It was a labor of love, but we got that out too, so we have lots of guidance for next year. Brianna. Yeah, we can do that. Let's see. Brianna, when I get to you, I'm going to need to know what city you're in, and it's not going to be a full-blown solar return, but I'll give you like the things to watch for. 115.93. Okay, so you still live there? Okay, cool. That's helpful. Okay, so we got Amanda. So last call is pretty much done, you guys. So if you're not in now, then that is going to be it. I need to know where you were born. I only need to know where you actually live now if I'm looking at a return chart. 321.79. Sorry guys, this is a little painstaking. Usually if you guys get them in early, you don't have to wait. You can always check the community tabs. We're always posting this early if you want to make sure that you get in and you won't have to wait as long if you're already in the queue. All right, so Mount Kisco, New York. And that was 3:20 p.m. All right, got Amanda in. Just a couple more and we can get going. Angela, I see you. I need your info though. Can you guys, you pull up Angela's info? Can you find it in the chat and get it for me? That would be helpful. I don't see her info. You guys got to put that in the memo, please. Let's see. We'll move on. I'll get Angela's stuff in just a second. Erica, I need that as well. You guys got to put this in the memo for me. Otherwise, this whole process takes longer. Ragini, same thing. Thank you. Angela. April 30th, 79. I don't have the time. Okay, there we go. 8:30 p.m. Angela's in. Thank you, Erica. And that is 4/19/82. $12:24 p.m. Okay, so we've got all of that. Is it Regini? I don't have your info either. Ten 14/1990. 2:10 p.m. Thank you. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Regini? September 1st, 92. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. How do I pronounce that? Let's see. I think we got, was it Michael? Yep, 1990. Yep. Okay, guys, we're almost done. Oh, okay, got it. We've got Pamela. I don't have your info. Free Spirit, I don't have your info. Guys, you're killing me. Smalls, come on, guys. So I need both Pamela and Free Spirit. Sarah, which, are you Free Spirit? Yeah, you guys got to put it in the memo. I feel like a kindergarten teacher telling everybody to hold hands. Mars square Neptune. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a break. People overlook things. All right, so let's put Sarah in. Thank you. May 20th, 1988. Uh, 6:20 in Melbourne. Okay, one last person I gotta put in. No worries. It's all good. Pamela. It's all right. It's Mars Neptune square. It's expected. That's why I'm not surprised. Pamela, where are you? Can you send your info, please? All right, let's go. Let's get on with the show. That way you guys don't have to wait so long. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so we're gonna start now with Melissa. Okay, so let's pull her up. Make sure that I'm not missing anything, because even I am missing things or people. Let's see. I know I put her in here. I just saw it. Melissa. Let's see. I have Melanie. Where did I put you? Well, now I'm not seeing you, so I got to throw you back in. Hold on. Go. All right, even I'm missing things. It's not just you guys, it's me too. I always like have stuff go missing, especially on screens and stuff. So if there's anything wrong with your guys' like astrology chart, like the rising or something, I'll confirm the time. Just let me know before I get too deep into the reading, because I can overlook stuff too. All right, here we go. So we're going to start with Melissa. I have you 10/6/1979 at 9:55 p.m. and that was in Missouri. And you are a Gemini rising, and your sun is in Libra, and your moon is in Taurus. She says, what's happening with my relationship? I'm not sure if it's my partner's own personal crisis he's going through inside or if he's unsure about our relationship. Well, so Jupiter rules your 7th house. Jupiter is getting ready to go direct. Jupiter is about truth, so there can be some truth that is revealed. Right now it's in Pisces, so it's more feelings. I will say this about the Mars-Neptune squares. It's not just about overlooking things and missing things or subtle cues and things where we're reading people's actions but not like their actual, not hearing words. But there can also be like reading too much into things, okay? So just heads up. Mars going retrograde on your ascendant is in a very complex square. It's squaring your natal Saturn in the 5th. So it's like, okay, what's going on? Am I coming on too strong? What's wrong? Is it me? You know, when it comes to a love relationship, 5th house. It's in an opposition to Neptune on your descendant. So you're like, okay, what's going on with them? You know, are they taking distance? Neptune on the descendant, it's not unusual for you to have partners who go through bouts of just being kind of quiet or ghosty or not communicative. And so this is basically setting up for a grand mutable cross if you involve transit Neptune. So yeah, you're changing the way that you respond to things. Your partners are kind of backing off a little bit. Maybe they're having some emotional stuff because Neptune can be emotional, or some spiritual crisis or crisis of faith. And it's going to be a little confusing. Now, because Jupiter rules your natal relationship house, the 7th, we look at your natal Jupiter. So you got Jupiter in Virgo. In this next year, you're going to see in the spring, Saturn is going to come into an opposition with Jupiter. So it can represent there being some changes when it comes to relationships, especially like in March, especially if you guys live together, or there can be some unsureness of, I don't know, do we want to live together? Do we want to move forward? What's going to happen? I would say, especially because Neptune is at an 18, there may be a need to be like, is everything okay? Is everything going on okay with like work, with your health? Like, are you drinking? Like, are you taking new medication? Like, do you need to talk to somebody? Because there can be some stuff going on there that can deal with like emotions or substances. And in my opinion, you know, Mars retrograde in your 1st house is about bringing your attention back to yourself and like what your goals are and your motives, and like also learning not to just be reactionary. Not that you are, but Mars retrograde is basically saying slow down, reevaluate what your goals are. It doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong in the relationship. It's just time to focus more on yourself, you know? You've also got Pluto moving through Capricorn in the 8th house, which is about intimate connections, coming into a square with Mercury. So like there's this sense of being like, well, what's going on? Like, what's the deal here? You know, like, why am I feeling weird? You know, do I have reason to feel like there's something that's off here? I think all of the mutable squares gets everybody really kind of mentally frazzled, especially if you're somebody who's got a lot of mutable placements in general. I mean, I got to be honest with you. If you look at this Mars retrograde, it ties back to 2 years of eclipses involving, you know, Gemini. And so Gemini is your ascendant. So it's what you think, how you communicate. It's anything in regards to also thinking and writing and speaking. So as Mars is coming into an opposition, again, it can be a really good time for you to be like, okay, you know, like, am I having to work too hard to kind of get something out of him? That'll happen in early March when it's direct. And that's also going to be happening. Let's make this a little bit quicker here. That's also going to be happening. Well, it's happening like right now. So there's 3 phases. There's the first square that we had recently, the one that's happening now, and then you're going to have another one in March, which can be like a real delay with like finally kind of being like, look, I can't be in a relationship with somebody if they don't have their shit together. Not that you can't love somebody who's going through some mental health challenges or stay in a relationship, but you can only help people who want to help themselves. And something I've noticed with Mars square Neptune is some people just want to check out, they want to medicate, they want to sleep, you know, they want to isolate themselves. I would use the energy in a positive way where, yeah, the mutable squares suck, but it's all trining your natal sun, Pluto, Venus, and also slightly your Mercury, right? So it's where you're taking action to fill your own cup, to focus on loving yourself, for standing up for yourself, for taking care of your inner child, for being able to kind of focus on what you love and what you're passionate and giving more attention to yourself. Not that that's going to fix the problem, but the more that you're doing that, the more that you're going to be really working with that first and the fifth house, being like, I can't let somebody else kind of throw me off, you know, or to an extent, I have to create my own happiness. And if somebody doesn't want to be an active participant in the relationship, then, you know, I'm going to have to basically be like, what's going on? That Mars retrograde will hang around until March. There's a full moon in Gemini. I know we haven't had this new moon in Sag yet, but I keep looking at that full moon in Gemini and it's conjunct Mars, and it makes me feel like you could get very emotional and there can be a lot of back and forth. I'll talk about it more next week, but as tons of planets go into your 7th house, it's going to oppose Mars and it's going to square your Saturn, and it's going to bring up this feeling with Saturn in the 5th of, I'm not lovable, why am I not worthy of stuff? And you got to really watch out for letting somebody else have control over those feelings. Because for all you know, it might even relate personally to their chart, but there's something going on. The fact that Jupiter is getting ready to go direct and it rules your 7th is, it can be a situation where it's like, yeah, well, I think we're better off as friends, right? Or we have different goals because Jupiter is going into the 5th house. And that's also the love that other people give. So Jupiter going direct can also have an adverse effect where it's like you say something and then all of a sudden, he realizes that something he needs to work on and that his mental health or the challenges he's going through has been affecting the relationship or the way that he treats you, right? So I think that you want to be really patient. That's my advice, is just to be patient through the process. But I don't think it has anything to do with you other than kind of redirecting your energy more so for yourself. There will be a Mercury retrograde that is going to be taking place in Capricorn. So it is going to be retrograding in your 8th, which can also be a time to get to the core of what's happening. The 8th house is other people's money or habits. So it is possible that you can be kind of talking a little bit more about that as well. I personally feel like it's still the tail end of Neptune in opposition to your Saturn as well. So it's kind of like where you don't have clarity and you can get really kind of frustrated. And we're going to have lots of issues with communication. So where you're redirecting your energy into what makes you happy and you're focusing on that, you're not as focused on what's happening with the relationship. And actually endings of relationships are more so connected to the 6th house. So that would be Mars. So it can be a long, drawn-out process of you realizing, okay, I'm doing everything I can, but you might get till March and then be like, I don't want to keep doing this. That's very possible. Might be worth taking a look at his chart, just food for thought. But in the meantime, I think that the trines that are happening to your 5th house are wonderful. I don't necessarily get the impression that a relationship has to end. But as you start seeing Saturn coming into Pisces next year, opposing your Jupiter, you might realize that you're not really down to be in a situation where you're feeling like you can't have everything, if that makes sense. You need to have everything. Yeah, in general. For Libra is also just Saturn being 5th house to your sun. It's like, what makes you happy? And I look at this and I'm like, learning, traveling, hobbies, new stuff that you're kind of teaching yourself can be really helpful. For moving through this. But yeah, the mutable signs are just getting railroaded right now. So sending you lots of good vibes in the process of that. Work with those trines, especially to your own Mercury. You're very psychic if you have Mercury at 29 degrees. I'm not just saying that. So as Mars is coming into the trine, with your own natal Mercury, you might realize you'll turn around in March and go, oh, it's up to me. Am I happy? Maybe it's not about him. Maybe it's like, am I happy in this? And you'll have to ask yourself if being in that relationship is also going to mean that you're being true to you, right? Sending you lots of good vibes. Hopefully that's helpful. Lots of tricky relationship stuff out there, guys. It's a doozy. All right, so let's now take a look at Shannon. You're very welcome. Come back, fill us in. Let us know what happens. All right, so we've got Shannon here. And Shannon says, astrology reading. Okay. Do you have anything in particular that you want me to look at? Because I want to hone in on something for you. Well, you're having your second of 3 Mars returns right now. How's that going? Pay attention. It looks like you're probably going to have it like in the next day or so, tomorrow-ish. My career, looking to make a change. Okay. So Jupiter rules your 10th house of career. You've got Jupiter getting ready to go direct. Really great for visibility, right? So Jupiter being in your first house is like being seen more. Jupiter rules your 10th. You're getting ready to have a lot of planets move into Sagittarius pretty soon. So that's definitely kind of setting the stage. Being a Pisces rising in general, you know, the new moon can be great for setting intentions when it comes to your career. So you can use that. But I think it's like what your beliefs are about your work. And that's going to be on the 23rd. Your real 10th house new moon won't happen until it gets into Capricorn. And what's interesting is you're going to have a new moon here right around December 22nd. And then you're also going to have Mercury that's going to be going retrograde into your 10th house. So changes happen with reorganization, Mercury retrograde, changing of jobs, Mercury retrograde in the 10th house sometimes. Mercury rules your 7th of partnerships. So I'm actually digging the end of December for you because I feel like coming off the new moon in Sag, you're more optimistic about making a change. Maybe you're kind of venturing out, seeing what's out there. You're going to have then Mercury go retrograde in your 10th house, and it's going to come into a trine with your descendant, with your Pluto in the 7th. I mean, I think that you could definitely find a new job for sure. But it's looking likely that you're looking for it. Maybe you stumble upon something or you're doing some interviews in December, but it's probably going to start in the new year once Mercury has gone direct, right? And so another day to kind of watch, because the sun rules your 6th house of work, is when Mercury goes retrograde, and then it comes into conjunction with the sun right around January 7th. So I think that it's a matter of kind of expressing like, hey, you know, if I'm starting, I would like to start in the new year. That might be like a better way to go personally. What else? I also think that the Mars retrograde is interesting because technically for a Pisces rising, it does deal with money because Mars rules your 2nd whole sign house. And you're going to have Mars coming in conjunction with Venus. So I'm wondering, like, are you looking at jobs in other cities or in other places? Are you considering a relocation, right? Mars several times going in and out of your 4th house, and then it's going to come into conjunction with Venus. So you might find that you find a job that you like and it's in another place and it pays well, right? And you're like, okay, well, now I got to move. Or are you looking to do some kind of work that's going to allow you to work remotely, right? Because, okay, cool, yeah. This is definitely doable. I think that if this were me, try to focus on stuff that's going to let you either work closer to home or work remotely, and you'll kind of start to see this really show up and maybe get sorted out more so in the new year. If not, you have until March and you're still going to have squares. But I look at this and I'm like, do you know what it is that you want to do? Have you figured out what it is that you want to do yet? Jupiter rules your 10th. You got Jupiter that is natally placed in the 7th, so you have clients. Pluto is coming into a square with your Jupiter, and that's in your 11th house, so you need to network. You need to be connecting with other people. And Saturn is coming into a trine with Jupiter. Yeah, working overseas, for sure. But I definitely think that this is about you possibly figuring out how to work in a much more digital way, right? Saturn's trying your Mars and your Venus right now, and it's in a trine to Jupiter. It's like, yeah, you could definitely do that, but you might be working nights because Saturn's going to go into the 12th. I also feel like that new moon, if you're somebody who looks at lunar return charts, the new moon is smack dab on your moon, okay? So if you're like looking to do a creative business or if you're looking to really kind of expand your happiness through work, that new moon is going to be a big one on the 23rd. I love Mars and Venus in conjunction. So I feel like you can be making more money and also working from home, but you may feel a little exhausted and just like the process of changing work and also changing, your home life. It can be a lot for you in March, and things are going to get much more clear probably when Mars gets into Cancer and it starts trining your ascendant. And I feel like it just seems like you're either trying to do more creative work or you're trying to work more for yourself. Do you have your own business? Just wondering. Shannon is energy tarot. So I'm gonna assume you're in the metaphysical field. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely do that. I would just say the Mars retrograde is a slow process of getting to where you can stay at home and work more from home. And I would say you don't want to start something or like launch something officially. It sounds like you already have a business. So maybe the Mars retrograde is like, how can I make more money from home, right? And, you know, Mars is intercepted in your chart in Aries. So it's harder for you to kind of get that initiated and get that going. And I would say like you need a space to work in at home with that Mars retrograde, and also like some updates. Like Mars going into your third house is like, do you update a website? Do you get social media? Do you start posting? Do you start doing videos? You know, things like that. But for Mars to go retrograde back and forth over your natal Mars, it's trying to get you to rev up your engine and get something going. So thankfully Mars is in your third, so I think it's more about you know, learning new skills and new ways of being able to kind of market yourself online. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. And then work stuff might fully transform for you more so, you know, next summer when you have that full moon in Sagittarius in your 10th. One thing you got going for you is also Jupiter going into Aries is still good for a Pisces rising chart. You're going to make money. It's going to start trining your midheaven. It's going to oppose Uranus. I think you're going to see a kick of bringing in more clients, but it's all about visibility. So taking photos, marketing yourself, creating that brand, putting yourself out there, all things that Pisces rising sometimes are not comfortable doing. So that Jupiter and Neptune, you know, being in your sign on your ascendant, it's like you can't be hiding. Like there's a need to like really, you know, put a face to the actual business in itself, if that makes sense. Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Shannon. Good luck. I love those planets in your second house. You're talented. It's just a matter of getting the show on the road. And I think with Uranus going retrograde, coming into conjunction with Mercury, the idea of moving is a good idea. And being able to get somewhere that might be a little cost effective, or maybe going back and forth between some places until you figure out where it is that you want to land. You know? Hopefully that's helpful. Good luck. Thanks for joining us. All right, so we have, I'll give you guys the running list. Carla, Brianna, Amanda, and Angela, you guys are on deck. So we've got Carla. Let's see. Thank you, Adrian, for your donations. I'm just kind of seeing that. Sorry, guys. I kind of go back and forth off the chat. Carla, you are July 25th, 1981, 10:30 a.m., and that was in Manta, Ecuador. First time. Well, welcome. My relationship with my 11-year-old son, 6/22/11, has been a hard time. I've been having a hard time with him in school because of his ADHD. I don't want to give him medication, but it seems like it might be the answer. So children rules your 5th house. It's connected to Uranus. And you got Saturn in your 5th house right now. So challenges with children, or, you know, getting kids to be kind of like focused and consistent and meeting kind of like timelines and things like that. Saturn's in a tight square with Uranus. So that's also just, you know, the frustration that you have emotionally with what's, you know, kind of going on with your child. So that's not unusual. 3, so 1, 2, 3. So also the third house from your 5th can be talking about kids, how your kids are learning, or like learning capabilities. And you've got Uranus that is in a square to Saturn. So I would say, yeah, he's getting overly stimulated. And like nervous system stuff, and Uranus is conjunct your moon. So it's going to have lots of changes in the emotions and lots of changes that's going on within the home life in relation to your children. Just a heads up, with Uranus coming into conjunction with your moon at a 19, what's the deal there with his parent, like his dad? Like, do you have a co-parent? Like, what's the deal here? because this is about you learning to either talk to a therapist, 8th house, or you're talking to your partner, 19 degrees, about that you're frustrated and you don't know how to handle the situation. I feel like it's definitely nervous system related though. Somebody mentioned essential oils are good for that stuff. Yeah, especially if it's a Taurus moon, so you're going to respond well to like scents and oils and how things smell. It'll calm you down. In theory, just according to your astrology, when you get out of like this fixed square, it'll get easier, but you're then going to see Uranus come into conjunction with your moon fully, and that'll be May of next year. At least when Saturn's in Pisces, it's going to start sextiling your moon, and I think that that can kind of indicate that like moods and focus can kind of become a little bit more calm. But I could also see Saturn in the 6th sextile the moon is also like he's medicated and he could be kind of zoned out. So it can go one of two ways, right? Personally, I feel like, let's take a look at his birthday, 6/22/2011. So, Cancer Sun. Okay. So he's got, depending on the time, we don't really know, but he's moon in Pisces is what it kind of looks like. So, yeah, I mean, you've got Neptune that's coming into conjunction with his moon, and Jupiter's conjunct his moon right now. Do you mind me asking, like, what is he eating and what is he drinking? Because Jupiter on the moon, it's like, is he consuming a lot of sugar? In terms of like mental stuff, I mean, you know, he's got Mercury in Cancer. He's got Mercury square Saturn, so he might learn differently, or it takes him a little bit longer to kind of get the hang of things. And emotionally also, if stuff's going on with him emotionally, it's hard for him to focus. And if you notice, Mercury is square to Saturn, and it's also in a square to Uranus. So if he's overly stimulated, okay, it's part of it can be sugar. Sugar can be an issue. And I'm not a doctor. I have to say this. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just talking to you like what I see with the astrology. Cut the sugar. Because Jupiter on his moon right now is possibly creating a situation where he's like turning into a sugar bug, and it is affecting his concentration because it's going to then come into, you know, some conjunctions with Uranus. Jupiter hitting Uranus means there's sudden changes in the home at a 4, and it's going to oppose Saturn, it's going to square. I would also say like not having him do homework and stuff around screens or with sound or other things that can be distracting him, because Uranus square Mercury is as if he's hearing things. I have a friend who's got a kid, and she was going through similar transits, and I was like, put some noise canceling headphones on your son and have, you know, him do his homework. And she's like, that's never going to work. I'm like, no, it's going to work. If you put him down at the dinner table, you have him finish his homework, he doesn't have any connections to any electronics or anything, he's going to learn to get his homework done, and then he can go and play his games. That might be a good option here, but definitely cutting the sugar seems like that's really important. In general, though, Mercury square Saturn, it's really important for him to not be criticized or like coming down on him emotionally, making him think, you know, that there's something wrong with him, or that he's not learning fast enough, or that he's not good enough. Because when he has issues emotionally, Mercury in Cancer, and he feels like other people are judging him, or they're, you know, he doesn't feel good enough, then he's gonna, you know, have some issues being able to really open up and listen in general. He was born with Uranus in opposition to Saturn square Mercury, so I'm also wondering, like, did he grow up in a house where there was like lots of stimulation? Like, was there, you know, arguments with parents going on? Like, did he learn to just like tune out and go and listen to his iPad or watch his TV shows or anything like that? Because I get the impression looking at that, because Uranus in opposition to Saturn is like, he doesn't know like who's in charge, or, you know, like mom and dad are arguing, and, you know, he kind of escapes, and he has like escapism tendencies where he'll just go and eat, or he'll watch TV, and that's how he deals with things. There's a need to kind of pull that out of it, and I think you need support. With Uranus coming into conjunction with your moon, you need support. His dad has similar traits, ADHD and OCD. Yeah, I mean, you know, Mercury square Saturn just means it's going to take him a little bit longer to get it. And I think having an exalted Saturn in Libra helps, because it says that he's going to have the support that he needs from superiors. And yeah, definitely Mercury square Saturn is he's going to kind of like learn differently. And obviously everybody, especially people who have, you know, kids, are going to have their own opinions about education. But I feel like class size is getting larger, you know, kids having so much stimulation at a very young age. It's harder for them to kind of pay attention because we're always like on, you know. I think Jupiter coming into conjunction with Uranus square his Mars and his Mercury, his mom's being like, there is no sugar in the kitchen. We're not doing that. These are the changes that are gonna happen, and you got to stay with it pretty much into the spring. But I think dairy or sugar definitely can be, you know, contributing to some of the stuff that's going on, to be honest with you. And Uranus coming into a trine with Mercury, or excuse me, a sextile with Mercury also is going to open things up. So possibly, let's see, he's Cancer, and you're going to have Uranus in the 11th. Like after school programs or like tutoring programs, group tutoring, that can be really helpful for him as well. But yeah, just be careful with medication with Neptune on his moon, because I feel like with Neptune on his moon, it could be quite detrimental to be on a new medication. It can throw off his moods, and then you're going to see Saturn come through there in 2 years, and you might realize that it's had like an impact on him, you know. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Good luck. Come back, fill us in, let us know what happens. We have now got Brianna, Amanda, and Angela. So let's see, what did Brianna say? You're welcome. So I think, yeah, Brianna wants the solar return. So she was asking about her birthday. So I'll give you like the major plot points for what to look out for this year. And this will be for 2023, because it's coming up here shortly. I'm just going down the list 4 people at a time, so there's definitely more people on the list, don't worry. Okay, so Brianna, you have got your solar return, which will be on the 15th this year, so it'll be on your birthday. It looks like it's going to be at 6:41 p.m. So you have this is a solar return chart for those of you guys who are asking what this is. So this is her birthday. Let's take a look at the themes for the year ahead. Leo rising, 6 degrees. So focusing on getting down to matters of the heart and organizing either health or work or things that are going to bring you more joy or pleasure. The sun rules Leo. It's located in the 6th house at 25 degrees of Capricorn in still a strong conjunction to Pluto. So this is like the last year that you're going to have like a sun-Pluto kind of theme going on. Pluto is now going to start moving away from your sun. So with Pluto and the sun in conjunction to the 6th house, you are changing and transforming something about your work, your office space, your routines, your habits. And Pluto is the ruler of your 4th house, and you got the moon conjunct the south node. So I feel like this is like cleaning up and organizing things in the office space or when it comes to your schedule or your health habits, but also decluttering, purging, detoxing old emotions and things that aren't good for you. The moon coming into conjunction with the south node can also be an indication that there's like a letting go or a releasing the past or negative emotions, or perhaps even like, you know, making some cuts with some unhealthy family relationships. I'm transitioning, being an independent contractor and going fully self-employed. Yeah, so that's the transformation then in the 6th house, which means that also there's more responsibility. And there's definitely going to be a need to really be on top of your schedule and, you know, taking care of yourself. I think something that I would just, food for thought, because you have like a chart that has a lot of indications in relation to health and work. If you are going to be self-employed, it's really important that I think you're staying insured, like health insurance, like staying on top of that stuff, because there can be some stuff that can come up this year that you don't want to kind of mess with, especially because the moon conjunct the south node, it's highlighting your 12th house. So whether that's getting, the routine care you need, or checkups, or, anything like that, like needing to make a shift. Transitioning out of your career, influenced by your family. My career is influenced by my family. Yeah, a south node moon makes me feel like you're going to take some space from a female family member as well. That might happen. But south node, you got a couple sixes here, so you got 6 degrees rising, 6 degrees conjunct the south node. I think your Saturn and Venus in the 7th house is focusing on client relations and partnerships with others. I do like the fact that you have the North Node and Uranus in the 10th house, so maybe it feels like until about April, May to fully get the swing of kind of working independently for yourself. In the back of my mind, knowing there's going to be a Mercury retrograde there, I think that's about like accounting and keeping track of stuff and documents and all of that in the spring next year. And you've got Venus that by 10 degrees squares the nodes. So that does talk about significant relationships and partnerships and friendships or business partners or clients that kind of show up in this next year, and a focus really on solidifying relationships, Saturn and Venus in the 7th house. I would take a look at how this chart relates to your natal. Like when I do a session for somebody, always, like if I have an hour with somebody, I'm going to be like, okay, cool. This is what we're going to do. Ask me your questions. I'm going to look at your transits. We're going to look at your solar return, and we're going to compare the solar return to the natal. Depending on what rising sign you are, look at how these two overlap. So you want to see like, where is Capricorn in your natal horoscope? And how is that talking to you about giving you more information about what is getting organized and what's kind of getting cleaned up? And, you got Venus square Uranus. So, changes with relationships, changes with friendships, changes with work, changes with clients, really strong in Aquarius and also Taurus season. I'm also looking at the fact that Mars will have just stationed. I think it's like the 14th or the 15th that Mars goes direct. So the fact that you're also going to be having Mars that's just stationing is really strengthening your Mars. So Mars trine your 7th house cusp, bringing in clients, but you got to network, And when the south node gets to 6 degrees of Scorpio, that's going to activate some things too. So yeah, do an overlay. That's one of my techniques. There's a freebie for you. I don't like giving away all the secret herbs and spices, but yeah, I like to compare the solar return to the natal chart, and that'll give me more insight. You can flip and flop, and you can go both ways, and you can see what's going on. Thank you, Adrian. Watch out for the sleeper nodes. Yeah, the south node being in your 4th house is like leaving the family drama, leaving the home behind, like detoxing, decluttering. But it can also feel like emotional unraveling that's kind of happening, right? Or that you're not as focused with family. So now that you're not talking to family about your work and your career stuff, and you're kind of like, okay, I'm not going to let them influence, you're going further towards your North Node in the 10th house. And I think you're becoming a little disconnected from family. But I like that Venus and Saturn's in the 7th. So it's like relationships can come in that can be supportive to help you through that transit. So if you do need to take some space from somebody within the family that can be a little toxic, you will. And look for some pretty dramatic home or family changes to be taking place. It may happen in the spring when you have oppositions from Taurus, but most likely it's probably going to be happening closer to right around fall of next year, But yeah, health, habits, patterns, work, sticking to a schedule, all of these things. Ask any Leo rising, they'll tell you. Hopefully that's helpful. Good luck with that. You'll kind of be in the swing of things by about April, May with work. All right, so we have Amanda, Angela, Erica. These are the next couple ones. Amanda. Mars. And that was March 21st, 79. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the love. What does my chart say about our future and possibly where we are heading? Thank you so much. Are you asking in regards to a relationship or just in general? So you have a 28 degrees Leo rising, sun in Aries, and your moon is in Capricorn. So Jupiter's coming back into conjunction with your sun. I like that a lot. You've had, Jupiter going back and forth over that a couple times. And in the 8th house, it's an opportunity for rebirth, right? Just totally changing and transforming. And you're welcoming that change because you're natally an 8th house sun. So I think Jupiter coming into that conjunction is great. It can provide you with more spiritual knowledge, intuitive knowledge. Jupiter also conjuncting your sun is going to square your moon, so you're going to be a little bit more hypersensitive. Here comes Saturn coming back into conjunction with your Venus. So that's also about kind of working out some health kinks or things in relation to your schedule. Yes, you very much are a Leo rising. But you're going to have the Saturn transit Placidus-wise that's similar to like Virgo rising. So I don't want to confuse you, but you're a couple degrees off from being a Virgo rising. So listening to that from time to time can be helpful. Saturn coming into conjunction with Venus is crystallizing something, right? So Saturn rules your 6th house of health. It also rules relationships. So to some extent, there's something going on here where you're, finalizing your routines, finalizing something with relationships, and Jupiter comes into conjunction with your sun. Something I like is that Jupiter is also going to hit your Juno. That's hit a couple times, and Jupiter and Juno were married, so I don't know how you feel about relationships, but that can be very relationship-oriented, so I'm liking that union going on right around the end of December, beginning of January. Then you have Saturn coming off of your Venus, and you've got Juno coming into conjunction with your sun. Divine partnerships, right? That change and transform you in some way, or committing to, sacred partnerships and not just like having intimacy, but like physical, spiritual connections. I also have a feeling that having Saturn fully come into your 7th house is going to be getting serious, talking about emotions and feelings because it's at a 28, or possibly talking about changes with home. Saturn's been in, a square, pretty much locked into a square with your natal Uranus and your 7th house. So if there's been this theme of like relationships aren't maturing to where I can live with somebody, or I've been in a relationship, but I don't really think this is working, so I need freedom, you might see like that just kind of like open up for you. But you have a lot of like relationship transits that are going on. North Node's coming into conjunction with Chiron, learning more about the healing arts, healing yourself. What is and is not healthy, sextiles to Saturn, so that's great. You might bring in like a new teacher or a mentor or a guru. And you're getting ready for your Uranus opposition. Are you ready? You were born with Uranus in your 3rd house. It's in conjunction to your IC, so I'm wondering, have you like moved a lot? But now that Uranus is coming into your 9th, it's going to be about higher learning, maybe learning about astrology, maybe traveling more. And it's definitely going to go hand in hand with some big job changes. You might, because you're a later Leo, you're not going to feel that as much quite until closer to 2024, but you're going to see glimmers of it next year with Jupiter and Uranus being in the same sign. But I think that you're learning something new. Your philosophy on life is changing. And you've got Pluto coming into an opposition with your Jupiter. Holy cow. So that can be, especially at a 29 and you have an exalted Jupiter. Like what was your experience when Saturn was going back and forth in opposition to your Jupiter? Were you focusing less on other people and more on yourself and your own happiness? I hope. Now when Pluto comes in and it makes this opposition, I think that there can be real shifts happening with some of your friendships. Some that can be ending, some people that are moving away. Doesn't mean relationship to have to end, but there can be like a separating or like a distance that's going on there. Yeah. And then those eclipses are going to start happening in Aries next spring. So you're going to start feeling the effects of those eclipses, and that's important if you got personal planets in Aries, and you do, right? So technically most of your Aries is kind of located in your 8th house. Actually all of it, because the cusp of your 9th is 19. So pay attention to those eclipses. That's my advice. They're going to start, obviously the first one will be in April, and that's at 29, so it's not quite in your 8th house, but the North Node is getting ready to move into what will be your 8th house, and that's about a change and a transformation of resources. So everything's going towards being able to work more with others. And if this is taking clients, if this is collaborating in a business, if this is finally getting into a relationship, and that's all more so perfecting for you after you come out of your Saturn opposition. So next year is Uranus opposition and Saturn opposition. It means you're learning to do both. You're learning to do the opposite. So if you have Uranus in the 3rd, speaking your mind, learning, moving around, Saturn in the 1st, self-consumed, now you're having lots of changes at work with Uranus opposition, lots of changes with relationships, and other people are going to be saying, hey, I need you, or I'm serious about something, or like, let's work together. So you're having to learn to be flexible next year. That's kind of the lessons that are kind of setting up for you right now, And I would say enjoy all of the benefit of Jupiter sitting on your sun. This is where it's really different. If it was in your 9th house, you'd be traveling a lot or teaching or learning, but it's in your 8th. So I see Jupiter going back and forth over your sun. It's like you've been in like a cocoon period, to an extent. So there has been a sense of you like getting ready to have this emergence of a new version of you. Maybe you physically look different. Maybe you're just different with your energy. I don't know. But also this is bringing more abundance. But I think the abundance is more in a sense of energy and vitality. It's maybe not necessarily money, but might actually be resources that are kind of kicking in more for you April of next year. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Amanda. Thank you for stopping by and getting a reading. I appreciate it. Okay, so we have Angela, Erica, Raj, is that correct? Michael, Pamela, and Free Spirit. All right, so let's take a look at Angela. Angela, thank you for being so patient. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so forgive me. I'm going to try to scroll and see what your question was, but I don't think I remember. I saw it briefly, but I think you took it away. I don't know. If you want to let me know your question, please do. Let me check your... I don't think you had anything in your payment. Yeah, no, just a reading. So what can I help you with, Angela? So let's take a look at what you got going on. Scorpio rising, sun in Taurus, and your moon is in Cancer. So you have got, you got a lot going on here. Saturn has been kind of like, oh, my question is about my career outlook for the next 2 years and location. Well, I mean, that's more so relating to your 10th house. So Saturn's going into Pisces. You're going to hear for Scorpio rising, it's like, responsibility for your own happiness or for your love life, for your children or for your own business, maybe, but Saturn's going to cross your IC. So just a word to the wise, as Saturn goes through the most southern part of your chart, there is this natural kind of like feeling held back type of energy. You have to understand that the IC is the most southern part of your chart. So it's the most private, the most personal. You can be feeling a little low, and you're only looking up. So as Saturn is going through the bottom, it's looking at the top of the chart being like, where do I want my life to go? Where's my career going? So there can be this feeling of kind of being bummed out, not seeing the progress that you want, right? I also feel that you're coming into your Saturn opposition. So it's kind of saying, this is the 14-year check-in where if it's all been all work and no emotional development or no home development or no family development, you're going to have a much more challenging time. So you're going to have Saturn opposed Saturn. So Saturn opposed Saturn will happen pretty much all next year once it goes into Pisces. Then you are going to be reevaluating, I think, whether or not work is providing the kind of place that you would want to live, or if you're literally considering relocating for work. Oppositions can work that way. The benefit, though, of having Saturn coming into Pisces is that it is going to start sextiling your sun. So work is going to get better, but you need to be in an environment that's conducive for you, you know, being able to feel good and emotionally well. Yeah. Kind of depressed, lost significant other, 16 years, questioning your purpose. Yeah, I mean, I think personally, that's also the Uranus transits. I mean, you may not want to hear this, but like new work is coming, but new relationships are coming as well. Both of these things are getting ready to set up for you. Saturn, when it's in the 4th house, I have found that it almost acts like this grumpy old person that like wants you to be alone. So even if you are in a relationship and you're living with somebody, you're going to feel lonely. If you're not with somebody, it's about kind of hunkering down and doing the emotional work that you need to do to kind of get stable so you can be more productive at work. But Saturn opposed Saturn is going to be like, yeah, you have to focus more on your home life. So if you are going to take a job, is it allowing you to have good mental health? Can you take care of yourself? Can you pay your bills? These things are all important, you know? Where I see new work coming in is because I see Jupiter going through the sign of Pisces, Jupiter going through the sign of Aries. It's going to hit your Venus, so that tells me February is great for relationships. It's going to hit your Mercury, so that's telling me things are expanding and you have new work on the horizon pretty much in March. And then it's going to hit your Mars. Now, it's all in your 5th house, so this is stuff like, do you decide to be self-employed? Do you work for yourself? Do you start a side hustle? Do you have a new hobby? Do you start dating someone? Do you focus on going out and having fun? The 5th house is about loving ourselves, and it's about our natural talents. So there's also another theme setting up with the North Node and the eclipses and Jupiter hanging out in your 5th house. That's like, what do you love? You got to do what you love doing. You got to be creative, right? And so it seems kind of like counterproductive. Saturn opposed Saturn is like, I'm not doing all the work that I want, but I'm doing something that definitely feels good, and or relationships. And that's a big theme for this chart with Uranus getting ready to go into your 7th, and it's going to start sextiling Saturn. So it's like home changes, relationship changes, you know? But work, I think, will feel easier when you're out of the Saturn opposition. So that Saturn opposition is going to be kind of wrapped up by about the beginning of 2024. So you might feel like you have to make some sacrifices, or you have to move for the right job, or, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And I mean, you know, I remember having that transit. I have Saturn in my 4th house, but I remember that transit, and the South Node was going through there as well. So for me, it was like, I got to move. I can't do this. I can't be super fixated on, you know, negative emotions. I can't get stuck here. I got to put myself into the 10th house. But I found that the more that I was doing that, I wasn't really dealing with the core issues. I was just trying to like work through it, and it all fell apart. So my advice would be ready to do the emotional heavy lifting. Make sure you're living somewhere that is going to be conducive to giving yourself everything you need. Saturn will then come into conjunction with the South Node. So even if the move doesn't really happen more so until like, you know, beginning of 2024, that's fine. Like it might get delayed a little bit depending on your other transits and what annual perfection you're in. But man, North Node and all these planets going through the 5th house, like creativity, having fun, you know, listening to your inner child, taking chances. You have all these planets in Aries. So you need to be doing something that you're feeling like is your own thing, right? That you're loving, that you're working on, that you're kind of working through. When you have a really strong Mercury transit, like the Jupiter conjunction, I do think that that's going to bring on work, but I think that work is only stronger as a result of you doing some soul searching and figuring out what inspires you in 2023, and then it fully blossoms and it blooms when you get into 2024, you know? And yeah, lots of changes with Uranus going through the 7th, makeups, breakups, endings, leaving partners, switches and changes with your home. But it's liberating you and making it possible for you to come into a next significant thing in a relationship. Because as soon as you start seeing the eclipses in your 5th house and Jupiter's sextiling Uranus, you're going to meet somebody who's going to like want to play house and move quite quickly, or start talking about settling into something, and you're going to be like, what? Uranus through the 7th house is always a good time. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Angela. Sending you lots of good vibes. Hope you find that you know, creative spark and something that's going to get you moving and shaking. All those planets in the 5th house, dancing, gambling, being on, you know, stage, partying, going out, like sports you can do on your own would be good too. So like golfing and like other things like that. It's really going to improve your ability to kind of like meet other people. All right, so we have got Erica, Raj, Michael, Pam, and Free Spirit. So we're getting down to the wire. We're almost there. Okay, so let's take a look at Erica. Erica, I don't have your question. What was your question, if you don't mind me asking? Let me see if there's anybody else's questions that I don't have. I got you here April 19th, 1982, 12:24 p.m. in Baytown, Texas. So you're a Leo rising, Sun in Aries, and your moon is in Pisces. Love life. Okay. Well, love life, some connection between the 5th and the 7th house. You got Saturn that's getting ready to finally leave your 7th house. So that's going to be a well-welcomed period of time. When Saturn leaves a house, he leaves a gift. So to be honest with you, like Leo risings, it's been challenging. You've had landlock between Saturn and your 7th, where there's like karma in friendships or relationships and lots of changes with Uranus in your 10th house. And I have foreseen the challenges in relationships only pushing Leo risings to have more kind of going with their career. There's challenges though, because I've seen a lot of you guys that are like, okay, is this relationship cutting it? Are they going to meet me up here? I have all these goals and aspirations for my life. And like, I really want to feel like somebody's meeting me halfway. So I don't know if you have felt frustrated in that sense, but it could seem that way. Saturn's going to be there pretty much until March, and it's also going to be making some sextiles to Neptune. So it's going to be kind of questioning, like, is the love there? Is the intimacy there? Are we still in it? And all the while Saturn is in Aquarius, it's trining your natal Saturn, trining your Pluto, which is about getting to the core of things, learning how to talk, communicating, getting the ideas out, and learning how to be more of a team player. Especially having Aquarius in the 7th, it's like you have to be a friend first. So if you're looking for a long-term partner, it's got to be your best friend. And sometimes that means you got to be honest with one another, and you got to kind of cut to the chase. And also relationships are going to be different for you because Aquarius is 7th house. So it's unusual. You're going through Pluto coming into a square with your sun, which is really important because Pluto is definitely going to challenge your ego, challenge your body, because it rules the ascendant, and also challenge what you thought you knew. You know, Pluto's coming into Aquarius next year. It may not be coming into conjunction with your 7th house cusp, but it's going into the same sign as your 7th house. So what's going to happen is you're going to see a total transformation of a relationship. Pluto rules your 4th. So things like, are you moving in? Are we buying a house together? Are we having kids? Are we done? Are we going our separate ways? So I think Pluto first squaring your sun and now coming into the same sign as your 7th is like, you know, change is definitely on the horizon. A lot of it's going to depend on where your progressed Venus is. It's also going to depend on their chart. So there's definitely a lot of things that go into whether or not this particular relationship is going to work. But I will say this, you have good transits coming. You have got Venus and Mercury and the Sun all coming into your 5th house. That brings the love in. So you're going to have that new moon on the 23rd. Really great because it's setting the stage basically to bring in more love, more romance, more relationships, a little bit more sweetness. It's going to square your moon. So I think it's about kind of, you know, being open with your emotions and like what you need if you need a little bit more excitement. And those planets are all going to move through your 5th house. And the 5th house is about the love that you give yourself also. It's in an opposition to Mars. So there's this feeling of not being super focused on what other people want, being really focused on what you need. I think that's important because it's all going to trine your ascendant. Where does relationship stuff kind of get worked out if there are some issues? Well, you want to look for when Mercury goes retrograde in your 6th because it's going to be 12th house to your 7th. So it's about working through some relationship stuff and like kind of airing some things out. As it does that, it is going to be squaring all of your, you know, Mars and your Saturn and your Pluto. So it's kind of really getting clear about making time, you know, for each other, scheduling, stuff like that. I don't really know if you're going to get an answer until you see perhaps maybe Venus come out of the square with Uranus right around the mid-January period, but that's a time that I would watch for. And some serious decisions about relationships as, you know, Venus and Saturn come into conjunction right around the 20th of January. You could wait until Pluto goes into Aquarius. And when Pluto goes into Aquarius and when the nodes come into a square with Pluto, there's definitely some relationship stuff that is shifting for sure in March. But I think that it's kind of getting down to the wire where it's like, are we going to do this or not? Because it won't just be the node square Pluto coming into Aquarius. It's also going to be that Pluto is going to square Jupiter. So it's leveling up time in relationships, right? And just a word to the wise, take a look at what's happened with Saturn in your 7th house. Where have things not been cutting it already? And it's not just romantic relationships, friendships too. And then you're going to have, in a couple years' time, Pluto is going to come into conjunction with your descendant. So this is a situation where I would be like, you kind of want to know. You don't want to hang around for a few years because you could find yourself in a situation in 2027 when the North Node and Pluto sit on your descendant and you're like, oh my God, like, I've been pushing this for, you know, 4 or 5 years and like now it's really not working. And I'm like really seeing that it's just something that's kind of potentially having some problems and falling apart. But that's way into the future. So knowing that that conjunction is coming, it's like if something's a problem, make it bigger, talk about it. I also think, you know, over the next 2 years, Saturn is going to sit on your moon. So you definitely have to kind of consider talking more about your issues and your problems. Talk therapy can be really wonderful. Saturn's also going to get really close to your Venus. So it's activating your 12th house Lord. It's also activating your 10th house ruler and your whole sign third, learning how to communicate. So I'm wondering, like, you know, with the moon and Venus being in the 8th house, it's like there's a lot of like, oh, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to rock the boat, or I would rather not know. But I think you're going to realize that the only way through it is to kind of talk about insecurities or, you know, issues that you're having with all the things that are left unsaid personally. And you can wait until Saturn comes into, you know, conjunction with your moon, or you can start preparing for that now and communicating and expressing that you need a little bit more clarity in order to feel safe or secure. I like Venus and Pisces. I like moon and Venus conjunctions. When you got moon and Venus in the 8th house, there is a sense of being afraid to kind of touch on certain things and whether or not you feel like you have security in certain relationships. But you're going to get your answer here pretty soon. You just don't want to wait until the nodes come into a square with Pluto, because then you could, you know, see some stuff that you don't really like about a potential relationship. Once again, a lot of it depends on your progressed Venus. It's also going to depend on their chart. I would look into Pluto coming into a square with your sun. That's very, very big. The sun in the 9th house, obviously exalted in the sign of Aries, is not allowing other people to slow you down. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. So it's interesting that you've got a lot of Pisces in your chart, but you're a late degree Aries sun. So there's a sense of like acting first, having feelings later, or reflecting on your feelings, or people not really realizing how sensitive you are. They just see you as this really independent kind of go-getter type of person. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions, and also making a lot of sacrifices for, you know, for relationships in general. Hopefully that's really helpful for you. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. All right, so we have got, is it Raj? I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. So occasionally that's just the one thing that kind of happens here. So let's go ahead and pull your chart up and your question. I do not have your question, so you will have to remind me. Thank you. Okay, so I've got you here September 1st, 1992, 11:10 a.m. That was in India. So you are a Scorpio rising, and your sun is in Virgo, and your Venus is in Libra. Okay. Oh, my dear. So here's the deal. If my partner's cheating, it's long distance, started a new job recently, how does the future look? Also about my visa sponsorship, if you could tell me, confirm the sun and rising sign. So this is Western. So Western, you're going to be Scorpio rising, Sun in Virgo, and Moon in Scorpio. Okay? Scorpio rising, Mars retrograde in your 7th. Mars is in a square to Neptune. Whether or not the things that people are telling you, especially in terms of relationship and partnership, is legitimate, right? So it's going retrograde over your natal Mars. Actually, you just had your second Mars return the last day or two. And I feel just in general with planets coming into Sagittarius, you're going to see this more like the end of November going into the beginning of December. All the planets in your first house is what you need. The Mars retrograde in the 7th house can represent, you know, whether or not you're changing your mind or changing positions with what's going on with your partner. And it's all coming into a square. So you're like, my relationships are changing. Can I trust what they're saying? Am I going to stay with this person? And then it's going to square Neptune in the 4th, which is where am I going to be living? What's happening, right? So it makes sense that you're going through all this stuff. Saturn, which creates delays, limitations, right? It rules documents for you. It's coming into an opposition with your Mercury in Leo. So it's like visas, passports, documents, you know, being able to get the stuff that you need to be able to kind of travel and get places. When Saturn comes out of that opposition, I feel like possibly you'll get the documents that you need. The Mercury retrograde in Capricorn is also in your 3rd house. So it's about document hangups. At least Saturn's going to trine your 7th, right? So for you, having somebody who's managing the documents and the legal stuff is really important, and making sure that you have somebody who's consistent with being able to tell you like what's really going on, why there's delays, you know, how much longer it's going to be. Not just like, oh yeah, don't worry, it'll come, we'll call you, because you don't know what people are doing. You know what I'm saying? But I think when you get out of Saturn in opposition to your Mercury, which is going to be closer to March, and when Mercury is coming into conjunction with Saturn, I think you're going to have a document and you're going to know what's going on with your living situation. And that's going to be closer to March of 2023. At that point in time, also, you've got planets coming into a trine with Mars. So you're also going to have another opportunity to be able to communicate more seriously and have kind of like commitments and like know what's going on with your relationships in general. I'm not going to go off and be like, oh yeah, somebody, you know, is screwing around or cheating, unless you know. Lovers of the people that you're involved with is actually more in relation to your 11th house, believe it or not. So I think that Jupiter being in opposition to your Venus is like a lot of you going, okay, are they talking to other people? You know, are they hanging out with other people, you know, around town? Like what's going on? Like there can be assumptions, and I would say don't automatically make assumptions. Pluto trine your Venus is really good for relationships. It's also an indication, because Pluto's going into Aquarius, whole sign 4th for you, that you were either getting ready to move and then go into a more serious committed relationship, or you're signing documents allowing you to be in a committed relationship with another person, stuff that's going to be binding. Pluto will trine your Venus off and on for the next like 2 years. So that's really good. I don't think you're going to decide to kind of ditch a partner or let a partner go or part ways from somebody anytime soon. You know, it could be closer to February, March before you're making some decisions. Got to be honest, you've had a lot of really significant eclipses, right? So we had eclipses in November of 2020 that was, you know, on your descendant. You've had eclipses in the spring that were on your ascendant and then re-triggering the descendant. So there's lots of changes going on for you right now. You need to wait until Saturn gets into your 4th house. When Saturn comes out of the square with your ascendant, which is you, and your descendant, which is someone else, you're going to have more clarity about what's going on with relationships, and that's like coming in March. But you would have to be having something really go wonky in your 11th house or in regards to your 11th house Lord for there to be something funny. Now, whole sign, okay, 11th house is Virgo, so it's going to be Mercury. So, you know, Saturn in opposition to Mercury is, are they talking to other people, right? So I think it's a matter of also just kind of asking, like, you know, are they talking to other people? You know, what are they looking for in general? And as Saturn is coming into your 4th house, it's getting more serious about being able to kind of have a home country, somewhere that you're living, that you can be, but it's also the ruler of your 5th, whole sign, living with a romantic partner. Now is the time to start having conversations. Are we doing this or not? Is there somebody else? Are we committed? You know, what's going on here? And you'll find when Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction in your 7th, closer to 2024, settling into a relationship, getting married maybe, talking about having a kid. These are the things that you're going to start seeing in a little bit over a year in general. And then Jupiter's going to trine your Venus. So, I feel like it's really hard if you're Scorpio rising right now, especially if you have natal Mars in the 7th house. There's a lot of like, what direction am I going in with other people? And you may find that because Mars, Gemini in general is connected to your 8th house. So it's about asking the right questions, asking questions of the people that you're with. What is your motive? What's going on? What are you doing? Because you're going to get the answers if you're going looking for it. But pay attention to people's responses. Because if they get angry when you're asking them questions or they start an argument, that's going to be a sign. A way to kind of combat this is to work with Mars energy, giving offerings to Mars. You can do that on Tuesdays. You can light a candle. You can put out a piece of iron. You can, wear red, something in honor of Mars to work with that energy. And when there's intensity with conversations with someone, it's important to just like sit down, have a hot beverage, have a face chat if you are anywhere near them, light a candle, bring that energy in so that way you can kind of combat that and kind of cool things down. But very significant for you, for Mars to be going back and forth over your Juno. I mean, this makes me feel like this is about like, do you want to get married? Are your intentions on getting married? Because if you do want to get married with Mars conjunct Juno, it's about being like, are we doing this or are we not doing this? And it's having those conversations because it's going to trine Saturn in the 3rd. But I don't necessarily foresee there being issues necessarily with other people, but you're in for some high adventure with Jupiter and Uranus coming into conjunction with your descendant. I think when it all happens, it'll be very quickly. You can ask other Scorpio risings. They'll tell you that relationships ended very quickly, or not at all. And if you've been on and off, the Mars retrograde is literally like, okay, are we doing this? If we are doing this, like, let's come up with a plan. Let's talk about it and not just letting things continue to be on and off. You also had that eclipse that was very close to your moon. So there's just a lot that's clearing out for you emotionally right now. Personally, I've seen a lot of, I have about 3 or 4 clients that I can think of that have Scorpio rising, Mars and Gemini in the 7th. Earlier degrees though, and what I have seen with every single one of them, personally, has been them being in a back and forth relationship, having problems, not knowing where things are going to land. They end the relationship and then boom, somebody else shows up. So, Uranus being in Taurus, even though it's not in your 7th house yet, it'll just bring somebody in very quickly. I would say, ending it, you want to wait until you have the Mars retrograde done. So if you feel like you can't do it, then you need to take a step back and know that they're probably still going to come back until March because Mars will still be kind of conjunct Juno in the South Node. And I think it's a matter of being really straight with people and being like, look, this is what I want out of life. You're either in or you're out. And if you're not in, then you're out. And then, we can't, we're not seeing eye to eye, which you're going to see naturally anyway when planets go into Sagittarius. All the planets are on your ascendant. It's not about other people. It's about what you need, And I got to tell you, you're going to have some very, very strong, positive things happening in relationships. I don't know if you've talked to an astrologer before, but you've got your 7th house Lord conjunct Jupiter. That's pretty good. It's a 9 degrees, but it's a conjunction. And somehow as you're making expansions either in your career, your professional life, that's how your relationships get enhanced because it's in your 10th house. But you also have Mars and Gemini in the 7th. So you could be engaged to somebody, break it off, live with somebody, end it, and then meet someone. So sometimes that can be a sign of 2 marriages, 2 engagements, 2 partners. Not always, but sometimes. And you do have Mars square Jupiter. So there is a much more focus in your career, and that is what's going to enhance your relationships in general. But I would say Uranus in opposition to Pluto, it's trying to shake out things that are kind of beyond your control right now. And having Mars be your chart ruler and it's in the 7th, it's like you can kind of provoke other people unintentionally. So you're kind of poking and prodding and kind of like, asking questions, and how they respond is going to show you something. I think because Mars rules your 5th house, honestly, if it's true love, it will come back with the retrograde, but also there can be another person because it's Gemini, double trouble. watch for those documents to kind of clear up in the new year. Make sure that you're being diligent and you're on top of it and telling people what's up. Being assertive is very important while Mars is in your 7th house. Be assertive with the people who you're in relationships with all around, not just your romantic partner. Good luck. Hopefully that's helpful. Let's see who we got. Got a couple more people. We have now got Michael and then Pamela and Free Spirit. You're welcome. Good luck. Come back. Let us know what happens. Anything in particular you want me to take a look at, Michael? I remember when my progressed moon went through Gemini. I felt like a crazy person. I felt nuts. Like everything was just too much at once. I was like always overstimulated. I have a dog now that's got a Mars. He's got moon in Gemini. He's got moon in Gemini and Mars has been on his moon and he's just crazy. He's like super aggressive and then he wants to cuddle and he's biting you and he's like all over the place and he's like super hungry. It's like really funny because I can tell that the transit's really affecting him. Oh, he's going to war. All right. Is that you, SP? Or are you Michael? He's super hungry. Hot foods. Michael, are you there? Are you there? Oh, okay. All right. Been saving up for a big 5th wheel camper for my job. Big financial gains this year, career recognition and growth. Starting a big contract job that should last the next 3 years is life-changing. Actually been recognizing my temper the last couple of months. Okay. So you are a Capricorn rising. You have your sun in Libra. And you are also one of those people who's having several Mars returns. So this is interesting because Mars is going retrograde in your 5th house. It's not in your 6th house. So it's more about finding ways to have fun and reevaluating like your love life. I mean, Mars in the 5th house is like gambling, sports, getting active. It's definitely about your love life or your sex life, but it's more like physical. It's not really so much about like love. I'm liking that it's trining Saturn in your ascendant because you're getting serious about what you're passionate about and having fun and maybe even like traveling more. So that's cool that you're like focusing on getting this camper so you can go and do more stuff outside. But it's also trining your Mercury, your Venus, and your Sun. So in the 9th house, it's like the bigger purpose of life where you can be going, what you're doing. For Libras and Aquarians, the Mars retrograde is actually really positive. You're going to see an extension of wherever the Mars retrograde is. So this is having more fun, right? Focusing more on getting out there and doing things. Your 2nd Mars return is coming up here pretty soon. And this one's going to be a little colorful because there's a ton of planets in your 11th house that are opposing it. So instead of it being all about you, it's about friends and get-togethers and going and traveling to meet people in certain places or something like that. Starting a family and kids have been on my mind, but for the future, it's not been open, actual serious emotional relationships since the last one hurt. Enjoying your passions more, yes. When you have a really strong lunar transit, you will see that stuff's going to open up. Family stuff, kids. I mean, Mars retrograde in the 5th is like, okay, am I willing to get back into the dating game, right? You may actually find that just socializing more and like visiting people in other places or vice versa opens the door for romance, and you're just looking to socialize and somebody kind of steps in. That might be the theme the next 2 months. I think that, I would look at the 2nd Mars return. So it looks like that's going to be right around December 12th. And then you'll have another one also. And that's when it's direct. And I have a feeling it's probably about you getting more interested in taking chances and with investments financially or dating. This will be right around mid-February that the 2nd one happens, or the 3rd one, excuse me. This is the one that's important too. It's also when the Sun and Saturn are coming into conjunction. So it's like, yes, you feel good about some of the things that you've accomplished. Saturn's going to come into an opposition with your moon in the new year. Moon rules relationships, and whether or not you're willing to get into a relationship, and it can be with somebody at a distance, or whether or not you feel like you're at a point where you're open to communicating more in relationships in general. Yeah, the stocks is an interesting thing. I mean, you know, Mars is square Neptune, so don't bite off any more than you can chew. But I definitely think this is about you, like, you know, possibly learning more about the markets and investing more and finding a way to be able to drum up more resources. I definitely think that's a thing. Oh, whoops. Sorry. Let me bring that back. There we go. And yeah, watch out with the Mars square Neptune stuff, because there can be a sense of like not looking at a certain line the right way, or like we're like over evaluating something and it may not be right. Like that can get kind of wonky. And getting advice from friends about investments too, that's also something that you want to watch for around the end of November, beginning of December, or giving advice to other people. It doesn't necessarily pan out. That's something that I would watch for as well. But I think this is about getting back into dating, and maybe you're feeling this a little bit more in February. So have fun, take your time, extended, longer car rides, trips, having friends in other places and being like, yes, I will go there and meeting them. That's really great. For Libras in general, you're going to hear that the retrograde is in the 9th. So it's longer car rides or traveling places, but it's also what you're learning. So there can be new hobbies and other things that you're kind of learning also. Any thoughts on Pluto opposite my Chiron while going through Pluto opposite Uranus? Okay, so Pluto opposite your Chiron. Let's see. So you have Chiron in Cancer, and it's in your 7th house, conjunct the South Node. So wounds relating to feeling emotionally secure or safe in relationships, or hashing out things with family members. You might find that you're connecting similar issues that might have gone down in your family to your partnerships, or vice versa. You might end up with people who have some of those like home family kind of issues. Pluto coming into an opposition with Chiron, it's at a 26. So I think it's about whether or not you're feeling like you have changed and transformed enough to be open to relationships again. And if you're pushing back on relationships in general. This is also about money and security. So there's like a sense of you being like, I feel like I need to be more stable or have more before I can, support another person. So when you're thinking about, kids, family, getting married, I think part of this is also like how you're changing and transforming your value system so you feel like you can support another person. I think that Uranus in opposition to Pluto, interesting. That's happening at a 16, so that's a Cancer degree. So that's about home or emotional changes. So you're thinking about, okay, what am I doing financially to kind of set myself up so I can do these things down the road? So I think maybe the investing, the saving, the, getting all the traveling and other things out of the way before you're really ready for a serious relationship. That's my take. You're 32 now, so you're in an annual perfection year 9. So you really want to pay attention to Mercury retrogrades and when planets go through your 9th house, because whole sign 9th house is going to be Virgo. So traveling, learning, all of that stuff. And the nodes being squared. So a lot of the transits you're going through, I was born in 89. I just went through all of these. So Uranus in opposition to Pluto, you either wake up or you're completely zoned out. That's what happens. The nodes square each other. That's interesting because it's not just, a point in time where you're like, I need to learn how to do this thing. How do I do this thing? That's usually how it feels. But you're going to have Jupiter coming into conjunction with the North Node, and it's going to square. So unfamiliar territory, listening more to your intuition, paying attention to your dreams, a definite expansion of your philosophy and your belief system, venturing to places that you've never visited or lived before, and it can be suddenly falling in love because it's your whole sign 5th Taurus. Possibly getting to where you're relocating for somebody that you love or moving in with somebody that you love or something like that. So actually it's a pretty sweet horoscope, to be honest with you. It's just when Jupiter opposes Pluto, it's going to make everything feel really big. So the changes in your career, the changes in your lifestyle, everything is going to feel really big. And, you know, even knowing what I knew about the nodes squaring, when it happened, I was like, I don't know how to do this stuff. Like this, you kind of feel like you're at a crossroads. You got to cut yourself a little slack and realize that you're having to learn new techniques to be able to better cope. So when you do come into your nodal return, you're prepared, right? And when you have your nodal return in a couple of years, it'll be conjunct Pluto. So it's about responsibility, it's about taking charge, it's about transforming your life, transforming your resources, that being kind of power, feeling a little bit more secure, you know? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Michael. Good luck. I'm excited to see what you do. So many Mars and Geminis this evening. You guys are really shifting the way that you guys think about life, huh? Your goals are changing. Okay, Pamela and then Free Spirit. I know Pamela sent her info, but it was way back there. Can we get her info? I know it's here somewhere. She said, new moon in Sag. Where was she? There we go. Thank you. 6/28/70. 1:09 p.m. And that was in Elmhurst, Illinois. All right, so thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so June 28th, 1970, 1:09 p.m. And you're having questions about the new moon, your Libra rising. The new moon is going to be taking place in Sagittarius, which is going to technically whole sign be your third house. You got to pick one. Career, job, move. Yeah, give me one question. But I will say this, new moon connecting to, technically, it's going to be in your second house. So this is about abundance, setting intentions for bringing in more resources, focusing on money and finances. But third house is movement. So are you manifesting more money because you're wanting to move, right? Are you planning on going back to school? I mean, good time to set all of these intentions. The problem that I see with going back to school, well, it's not a problem. Mars is retrograde in your 9th. So it's like, how do I return? How do I go back? How do I review what I have learned in the past? Planets are coming in the 3rd, which means you're curious and you're interested in learning something new, but it's going to start coming into a T-square with Jupiter and also Neptune. So like moving, classes, work, all of these things are coming into a mutable T-square. So it tells me that your schedule can get overloaded and it can be hard for you to schedule things. Setting intentions for moving and money is what I would recommend. If you're actually going to commit to going back to school, right around the end of November, around the 29th, Mars retrograde will trine Saturn. So I could see you doing it and making the time for the things if it's really important for you. And then also when Mars goes direct and we start seeing sextiles happening from Jupiter in the 7th, that could be happening as well. That can be an indication that you're getting ready to kind of learn something new or, you know, take a course. And that will be anytime between February and also April of next year. As Mars is, you know, doing its retrograde, right, it's going to be trining your ascendant and also your Jupiter. So it's like, what do you want to learn? Where do you want to expand? Something like that. Thank you very much, Adrienne. I appreciate it. You're so generous this evening. And, you know, I think with Mars that's in a square to Neptune, it's also just about not overly exerting yourself with your schedule, not taking on more than you can. Uranus is also coming into conjunction with your Saturn. So there's definitely a need for a change in regards to your resources, a change in regards to your home. So I'm kind of getting the vibe that's like, yes, everything needs to change, but which thing do you do first? And if Mars is going retrograde in your 9th, if you're thinking about going back to school, talking to a counselor or possibly talking to somebody to kind of help figure out what you could or should go back to school for, and figuring out like a path to completing that program so that way you can kind of get back into work. Obviously, a lot of this is going to depend on your annual perfections and all that stuff too. But I think that once Mars goes direct, you're going to have much more luck figuring out something in regards to school, you know. But set intentions with this new moon in Sag, literally in regards to finances and also making enough money so that way you can move. Moving stuff's going to come up. You're going to see a Mercury retrograde in your 4th, definitely for Libra risings. You think you're moving, but then you're not, or you're planning on moving, but there's something wrong with a lease, or then you find out there's something going on with a landlord. These things can kind of happen as well. So I don't really recommend moving yet. I think that moves are going to go a lot more smoothly, probably when you start seeing trines with your chart ruler to your 4th house or to Jupiter. So like March, April, May, much easier for movement, if you want my opinion. I think figure out school first, make sure that it works with your schedule. Don't overload yourself. Start coming up with a plan for returning to school, scheduling things out. And if you're going to make a move, moving in the spring is going to be a little bit easier for you, personally. And you have a lot to look forward to, both Jupiter and also Uranus going into your 8th house. Like movement can produce also like an opportunity, you know, to bring in more money and more resources, because Jupiter is going to go into your 8th house. North Node's going to be in your 7th. Jupiter is going to be in your 7th. Like the assistance that you get from other people. You're going to get more help from others. And people that you're kind of talking to and learning. And is school the only option? You know, Mars going retrograde is like, do you have to go and get a degree? Can you do a certificate? Can you find a mentor? Can you work and be trained by someone? There's going to be a variation of different paths to completing your education and making it possible, I think, for you to feel like you can bring in more money. That's the vibe that I'm getting. Keep in mind also Saturn is coming into conjunction with your North Node in the 5th. So I'm wondering, whole sign that's in your 6th. So are you wanting to go to school for healthcare or something in regards to that? Home care? Real estate, something like that. What is your interest? You're a nurturer with that Cancer, Sun and Mars in the 10th. But home, property, real estate, property development, end of life care, hospice care, you know, stuff like that. It could be a mix of the two. But I think that there's another option that can kind of fast track things. Oh, Ayurveda. Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, I think that Saturn coming into conjunction with your North Node and it's going to be trining is like, can you do something that can be like a hybrid where you're doing it, you know, from home and also physically in person? And Saturn going into Pisces is going to be all of the hairdresser and assisted living. Yep, there you go. So you were doing something where you were nurturing and taking care of people. Little do we know, you're making them beautiful, Libra rising. Your moon Saturn also, you do well with older people. So I think that even if you go the path of Ayurveda, you're going to be like, I want to help, you know, older women, or I want to help them deal with issues with their hormones or issues with stiffness and stuff like that. Uranus coming into conjunction with Saturn too. I kind of feel inclined to tell you like your intuition is going to pop a little bit more, and learning more about astrology is definitely going to be a thing, and it might aid you in learning how to work with certain herbs. And where looking at a chart, you can see what somebody's more predisposed to or what transits they're going through, and then using the herbs, right? Good night, Echoist. Thanks for for joining us. Appreciate it. But yeah, I would say be open to that and come up with a plan where you can kind of accelerate something that you're learning and make it quicker, you know, or you can do something like temporary, like you can do some shorter programs and see what you like. Pick up some books on some authors and people that you like to really make sure and flush out what it is that you're going to be learning. Hopefully that's helpful. And last but not least, one of the most patient people in the chat, we have Free Spirit. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's put you in there. Okay, so it looks like I've got you May 20th, 1988, 6:20 p.m. Yes. So you're a Sag rising, your moon is in Cancer, and your sun is in Taurus. So your question is in regards to your love life in 2023, single, looking for marriage, also starting a second business in real estate in January. I like it. Well, you got Mars that's going retrograde over your 7th house. It was in conjunction to your Mercury, which is your 7th house lord. And the feeling that I'm getting is that you're like, okay, I'm looking for true love, because Mars rules your whole sign 5th. So you're like, I'm looking for love, or possibly you're looking for somebody who wants to get married or wants to have children. That seems to be like a theme here. While Mars is going retrograde, it's in a square with your natal nodes. So there's also this conversation of, are you ready for what I'm ready for? Are we on the same page? Are you ready to move in with somebody? That kind of stuff. So asking all the questions is important. I really feel like with Mars going retrograde and it's in a square with Jupiter and Neptune, there can also be some people from the past that can kind of pop up, or you're reevaluating your past and what's happened in the past. And you might meet some people that remind you of people that you've been with. So there's also this realization that your changes and what you're looking for in relationships are happening. I think that there can be this shift in like realizing like there's like what you've always gone for, what you've always liked, and then like what you need. And that can be the shift happening with Mars retrograde conjunction to Mercury. People, may be slower in taking action or, calling you back or, connecting. They might need a little space because it's going retrograde and it's in a square. Where will you see, some clarity in relationships? Probably when Mars goes direct. It'll conjunct your Mercury in March, but it's still going to square Neptune. So even though you have more clarity at the beginning of March where things are going, the square to Neptune is like saying, okay, well, where does this leave us? If somebody's not, willing to relocate or move, or, it was really good for a couple months and now they're kind of slowing down. That is possible. I'm not going to say it will happen, but that is possible. And then, Mars will come into conjunction with Chiron, and it's also going to square Neptune. So I don't want to see you in a situation where there's like a back and forth with somebody who's at a distance, and then you're like hearing all the things that you want to hear, and then when push comes to shove and you're like, okay, now we're going to move in, they kind of scale back. Don't really push things until you get out of this square. Is it a good time to be searching and looking for love? Yes, when Mars is retrograde in your 7th. And it can be a time where soulmates come back to you, because retrogrades are like literally, it's about dealing with karma. So I look at this and I'm like, things are going to be a lot easier for you after that kind of mid-March period. At least we're going to get Mars that's coming into conjunction with your Venus. And we're also going to see that there's eclipses and in your 5th house. So either children or romance is on the agenda. It's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. We're also going to see that Jupiter is going to start coming into a sextile with your Mercury. So that's also really positive. So at the very least, it can be a lot of romance and a lot of connection. You'd want to look at your progress Venus. You'd want to look at a couple other things. I would say be very selective right now, because you are also going to start feeling the effects of Neptune coming into a square with your Venus. So there can be this sense of like falling for a partner and then finding out they're not financially stable, getting involved with them and then finding out they don't really want, kids. Like there's a need to basically be like, look, these are the things that I want. This is what I'm hoping to achieve. Are you in it or are you not? Like, people get all freaked out about retrogrades, but I actually feel like retrogrades are a time where we can actually kind of shift the motion of where we're going in that area of our life. I've had retrogrades in my 7th house and I'm always like, oh my God, this is going to be horrific. I've had more luck with Mars retrogrades than with Venus retrogrades in my 7th. So Mars retrogrades actually has brought good things in, but Venus retrogrades has brought people in that I had to kind of work shit out with. So I feel like for you, because Mars rules your whole sign 5th of children and true love, and it's also connected to Scorpio, which is, coming out with the truth, 12th house, that, you have the opportunity to kind of be like, look, I'm putting it all out there. I need you to do the same thing. Are you in or are you out? That way you have more clarity when it comes to making decisions and changes with your home life, and also planning a future with another person. Gemini, 2, double trouble, 2 people. So it's going back and forth with 2 people. So for late Scorpios and also Sag risings, the Mars retrograde is you want to make sure that the person that you're dating is also completely in it, that they're not having conversations with other people or they're not pursuing relationships with other people. They could be, but that's why you ask the questions, and Mars is in a mercurial sign. It can be also that you meet 2 people. Right? So that it is possible that another person comes in for you and like something cools off with another person. So I would say like feel that out. But for some cases, it's about talking about 2 becoming 3. So it can be that you're like, okay, I want to have a kid, and you're discussing with that other person the fact that you want to expand the relationship in that sense as well. And I have a feeling once Jupiter is sextiling your Mercury, which will be in the spring of next year, you know, things are going to kind of go a whole lot smoother. Getting married is a whole other can of worms, and I will just leave it at this. As a Sag rising, Leo rules your 9th house. So you're going to have a Venus retrograde there. So I could definitely see that you're thinking about getting married, or you're thinking about planning a wedding, or you're thinking about eloping or something like that, but there can be some changes. So whatever you do, we're not getting married during the Venus retrograde next year, okay? So that's going to be taking place somewhere around, the end of July into August. I really recommend not doing that, especially as a Taurus sun. It's going to square your sun. So something about some kind of changes, either legally or stuff in regards to like travel or being able to get married. Venus retrogrades we don't want to do. We don't want to have weddings, or we don't want to be making a bunch of significant like changes to our aesthetic or anything like that as well. Okay. If it's, you know, there's nothing wrong with getting engaged, planning things, just know that there's going to be some changes. So just knowing that that's also going to sextile Mercury, which is like, actually, you know, they don't want to have a big wedding, or actually, you know, they do need to kind of handle some situations in their life, or some debt or some other things before they're ready to kind of get married. But definitely it'll give you the opportunity to kind of make those decisions. I do see people decide to get divorced during Venus retrogrades. That does happen. Usually it'll be closer to like the 6th, the 7th, or the 9th house. It's usually one of those houses. You'd have to see squares. You'd have to see several aspects. You're not going to base it just off a retrograde. But I have seen people, especially towards the midway point when the Sun and Venus conjuncts, that people realize whether or not a relationship's going to work. So yeah, I have seen that happen. And next year we're going to see Venus go retrograde in Leo, which is super dramatic. It's going to square Jupiter and Uranus. And in your chart, it's all going to oppose your natal Mars, and it's going to square. So it's like, it's better not to rush into something, right? It's better not to rush into something. Make sure it's the right person, not be pushing for it, because you're going to have this set up. But you've had 2 years of retrogrades and eclipses in your 7th house when it comes to relationships, and you've seen that people come and go. Not everything stays, right? A lot of it's because it's been the squares that's been happening to your nodes. And they're very changeable. People can change change their mind, change direction, kind of move around a little bit if you've got Gemini in the 7th. So after mid-March, things are going to get a little bit easier for you. Hopefully that's helpful. What about divorce with retrograde in the 9th? It can, not always, but it can. That can be changes in travel plans. You have to look at what Venus rules, right? So for you, I'm more concerned with Mercury and the fact that Mars is going back and forth there. I think it's talking about the bigger picture of relationships with people, and possibly talking to people at a distance. Okay, guys, thank you for spending Saturday night with me. I always look forward to this. I appreciate it. There's a new astro weather coming out tomorrow. Nothing too crazy happening this week. We got a new moon that's going to be in Sagittarius. That video is out. Sun trines Jupiter tomorrow. We have moon trine Saturn as well. So tomorrow's a great day. It's a good day for socializing. We got that new video that will kind of talk to you all about what's going to be happening for the week. Horoscopes are going to be coming out on Thursday. I just filmed them, try to get those out early. If you're interested in signing up for my courses, go to my website, sign up for my newsletter. I will not spam you. You're only going to get emails about the sale that we're going to have. So if you want to buy any of the courses, you want to sign up for the next course, you want to study with me live starting in January, I would love to have you as a student. Look out for that. That's going to be popping up over the holiday weekend. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see all of you very soon. Take care.